Chapter 547. Chu Tian returned to the place where the trap had been set up. There were 7-8 hell fire demons and several hundred flame demons wandering around. The ground was covered in green flames, just like a green forest. This was the green abyss flames released by the hellfire demons that had been killed in battle. Meiji said to Chu Tian, "The abyss demons are very hard to deal with. Since we've drawn out these demons, we'll go around them and enter the demon burial cave temple." "No, it's too wasteful to just give up like this. I can't do this." Chu Tian did not explain and directly said to the little fox, "Do you know what to do?" The little fox did not say anything else. Punk! A gray mist appeared. The little fox appeared in the center of the demons. Meiji and Shadow's expressions changed. The hellfire demons were all in the 9th true spirit layer, and they were half-elemental demons. They didn't have any vital points, so it was very hard to kill them. Otherwise, how could Kil'dan, Zoro, and the others be forced into this miserable state? The green flame demons had been bred for over 1,000 years, so they were at least in the 1st to 2nd true spirit layer, so they were not easy to deal with. They clearly didn't need to provoke them. So why did Chu Tian want to cause trouble for them? This was simply unreasonable. These demons discovered the little fox's appearance at the same time and immediately charged over like a tide. Shadow's eyes opened wide as he said, "This spirit beast is in danger." Chu Tian smiled without saying a word. This kind of scene had no effect on the little fox. It calmly let out a breath, and its small body released a faint purple ripple. It instantly spread out layer by layer, covering all the demons inside. Under this strange energy, the demons' mobility was greatly reduced, and they all became slow and sluggish. Almost there, the little fox stopped breathing and sucked in its stomach. The surrounding purple ripples gathered back, and it was like a storm being stirred up. Large amounts of green flame demons were like iron powder that met a strong magnetic field, instantly shattering into pieces and being sucked into the little fox's body. With a single breath, at least tens of green flame demons would be killed. The other green flame demons and hellfire demons were also heavily injured. This time it didn't just shock Meiji and Shadow. Even Chu Tian was shocked by the little fox's performance. Back in Thunder State, when the little fox faced a weak hellfire that had just crossed planes, it could only slightly restrain it. He never thought that in just a year or two, the little fox's progress would be this great. It already possessed the ability to suck this kind of powerful abyssal demon dry. The abyssal demons had the ability to think. Once the little fox's powerful methods were used, the abyss demons felt a strong sense of unease and fear. The hellfire demons had a certain level of intelligence, and when they faced the little fox, it was like a rabbit facing an eagle. A natural enemy appeared in the depths of their souls, and it made them lose the courage to fight. Meiji then saw an incredible scene. These abyssal demons, who had always been known for their madness and cruelty, all turned around and prepared to flee. "Don't let them escape." Chu Tian raised his sword and shouted, "Quickly kill them." The little fox wouldn't let these demons go so easily. With a series of breaths, the green flame demons were killed one by one, and the hell flames were weakened to the extreme. Within the little fox's domain of absorption, it was like their feet were stuck in glue, making it hard for them to move. Kage drew his bow. So, the flames around the hellfire demon's body had been mostly sucked by the fox, causing the hellfire to become very weak. Its strength and defense had decreased by a large amount. Kage's arrow had actually shattered the hellfire demon's body. How was this like shooting a powerful demon? It was simply like shooting a porcelain doll. With a voila sound, it completely shattered. Even Kage's strength could kill these incomparably strong beings from a long distance. Not to mention the stronger Meiji and Chu Tian. The three of them didn't spend too much energy to deal with the hellfire demons. This was completely different from what Kil'dan and the others experienced. After the hellfire demons were killed, other than the rubble on the ground, each hellfire demon's green abyss flame origin flame was left behind. This was what Chu Tian wanted. Chu Tian released several dozen netherworld flames from his body, and each netherworld flame wrapped around a ball of green abyss flame, before returning to Chu Tian's body. These were several dozen extremely strong green abyss flames. It was enough to burn any true spirit cultivator's body to ashes. Chu Tian had sent them all into his body like this. What kind of dangerous and crazy method was this? If they were nurtured under the same natural conditions, the green abyss flame would not be inferior to the netherworld flame. But Chu Tian's flame had been carefully nurtured by Chu Tian. Not only did it consume large amounts of resources, it had also swallowed many things, including the rare and precious ice spirit flame. In terms of quality, Chu Tian's netherworld flame was already in the immortal grade, and these green abyss flames were only in the sacred grade. Therefore, the netherworld flame could suppress and swallow the green abyss flames. Even if the netherworld flame had evolved to a high level, even if it refined these green abyss flames, it wouldn't make a qualitative leap in quality. However, absorbing these flames would increase its strength by a large amount. If the weapon spirit netherworld was only in the 7th truth layer before, now it was close to the 9th truth layer. Chu Tian was even more satisfied with the fact that while refining the green abyss flames, he felt like he had taken several high-quality sacred pills at once, allowing his cultivation base to clearly increase. It was already close to the peak 5th true spirit layer. It increased. It increased again. In this trip to the purgatory world, he hadn't obtained many benefits yet, but the increase in his strength was quite good. That's enough. Meiji indignantly walked in front of Chu Tian. She couldn't stand this human anymore. We know you have the ability to reach the heavens, and we know you have remarkable abilities, but can you tell us before you do anything abnormal? Let's be mentally prepared. Sorry. I'm a person who likes to create surprises. Chu Tian was not ashamed at all, as he said with a giggle. You'll be working for me in the future. It's better if you get used to this kind of thing early. Meiji glared at him. We'll talk about it after you take back Darkness City. Is this a very difficult thing to do? If Chu Tian built a passage between the Purgatory World and Miracle City, with Miracle City's power, how hard would it be to take back Darkness City? Speaking of this, Chu Tian had already left Miracle City for many days. He really didn't know what Miracle City's situation was like. There was no doubt about the young Miss abilities, and Miracle Commerce was filled with talents. Chu Tian was most worried about the giants of the Forest of Chaos, especially terrifying existences like Death Wing. If they wanted to make a move against Miracle City, anything could happen. No, Miracle City was their main camp, so anything could happen anywhere except Miracle City. Chu Tian couldn't keep wasting time in the Purgatory World. He had to get the Eye of the Star as soon as possible and dig out some spatial crystals to build a transport tower. Don't say any more, let's go in. Chu Tian didn't have the mood to joke around anymore. There was more than one temple near the Demon Burial Cave, and the little fox had found quite a few good things. Of course, places with good things are usually filled with danger. Chu Tian didn't want to cause any problems for now, so he had to get the Eye of the Star first. The Demon Burial Cave was filled with various ancient restrictions and traps. With Chu Tian's powerful divine sense and the little fox's vigilance, they didn't trigger a single trap when they walked over. This allowed Chu Tian to smoothly enter this ancient and mysterious temple. An oppressive aura suddenly spread out. This temple was in the center of the Devil's Gate area, and it seemed like it was built to seal the Demon Burial Cave. The entire temple's altar and statues were all made of very expensive metal. After all these years, although the outside had been eroded, the inside of the altar was still as new as before. Meiji felt her heart beating uncontrollably. This was the most dangerous place in the Devil's Gate area. This was because the bottom of her feet was the legendary Demon Burial Cave that had buried countless ancient demons. No one knew what had appeared here in the billions of years that had passed. Shadow pulled out a small knife and said, "You want the eyes of a deity?" That's right, the eyes of these deity statues are all good quality Eye of the Star. Chu Tian paused before continuing. With these Eye of the Star in hand, Darkness City can be saved. Meiji didn't waste any words. She flapped her wings and flew into the air, preparing to attack a deity statue. Chu Tian found a strange situation. Be careful. Meiji attacked a deity statue. When she touched the deity statue, what no one would have thought was that the deity statue would release a sound. It was like the sound of metal colliding, clear and bright, like there was nothing wrong with it. However, this sound was like a needle stabbing into a person's brain. Pooh! Shadow directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Meiji's spiritual energy was strong, so she wasn't heavily injured, but she still felt intense pain. She immediately returned to her original spot with a pale face. What is going on? Each deity statue seems to have a very strong restriction placed on it. Chu Tian used his divine sense to inspect the surrounding deity statues. No matter what kind of energy we use to destroy it, the restriction inside the deity statues will automatically activate. It is like a bell being struck, and these deity statues will release a spiritual wave that can kill. If it wasn't for the fact that your attack wasn't too heavy, perhaps you wouldn't have any battle strength left even if you didn't die. Shadow wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, still feeling dizzy. This strength is too strong. What should we do? There is no truly perfect restriction in this world. Chu Tian's brows slightly knit together. There must be a way to break it. Chapter 548. Chu Tian's divine sense was like a slowly flowing tide, quickly filling the entire space of the temple. The statues in the temple were all made of unknown abyss materials, which could stop Chu Tian's divine sense from entering. So he couldn't see what kind of structure the statues had. Fighting force with force wouldn't work. There had to be a control core in the temple. As long as the energy supply core was cut off or destroyed, the temple would no longer be protected, and these statues could be destroyed. Shadow found that there was something strange about the altar, so he immediately called out to Chu Tian, "There seems to be a passage in this altar." Altar? That's right, it had to be the altar. Chu Tian didn't know what race or civilization this temple was built by, but from common sense, the altar was the control center of the temple. In this current situation, the best choice was to start with the altar. The entire temple was very large, and the altar was in the center. It was around 80 meters tall and had a diameter of over 100 meters. It was in the shape of a trapezoid, and the surface of the altar was covered in holes, with the top being hollow. If it wasn't in the ruins of the temple, one would think that it was some strange race's lair. The altar was covered by some kind of power, and Chu Tian's divine sense couldn't enter, but he could vaguely feel a very bad feeling. "Fox, go in and take a look first." The little fox entered the altar first. Not only was it alert, it didn't reveal its aura, so it wouldn't attract attention. At the same time, it was quite flexible. In this unknown situation, having the little fox scout was the best choice. In the end, the little fox had entered the altar for less than 30 seconds before it immediately ran out with a panicked expression. It immediately warned Chu Tian to run. "What's going on?" Chu Tian didn't know what was going on. The temple suddenly shook like there was an earthquake. From the large holes on the surface of the altar, thick tentacles covered in barbs suddenly came out. Each tentacle was dark red, and other than being covered in sharp barbs, there were large amounts of ancient runes and totems carved on them, releasing a powerful energy and aura. One of the tentacles stretched out 1,000 meters, directly attacking Chu Tian's group from inside the altar. Chu Tian condensed the demon god's sword in his hands, and with a metallic sound, he forcefully blocked the tentacle from the distance. But in the next moment, the runes on the surface of the tentacle lit up, and a strong energy was released from the tentacle. It was like being clawed by a behemoth. The demon god's sword was shattered, and a terrifying power slammed into Chu Tian's body. Chu Tian was sent flying to the end of the temple and slammed into the wall. What kind of monster is this? It's really fucking strong. Chu Tian's body was covered in starlight. Although he had the starlight immortal body to protect him and wasn't injured, the monster's strong attack power still shocked Chu Tian. This was definitely the temple's guardian beast. If a single tentacle was this strong, then this tentacle had over 100 tentacles. If they attacked together, how could they block it? The roars coming from the temple became stronger and stronger. More than 100 tentacles had reached out, and 4 or 5 of them were attacking Ying and Meiji. The symbols on the surface of the tentacles could generate a great power, and the sharp barbs on the tentacles were like rolling blades. If these tentacles hit their bodies, would they still be able to find a whole piece of their bodies? A black flame arrow. Shadow had a tentacle covered in black flames, but this attack didn't seem to have any effect on the monster. It didn't stop the monster's attack at all. Meiji had no choice but to make a move when she saw this. Her figure suddenly flickered and turned into 7-8 shadows, instantly bringing Shadow out of the attack range. Phantom Swift Slash. Meiji launched another attack. Every step she took left behind an afterimage. Her trajectory was completely unpredictable. In the end, she slashed out an incomparably sharp blade light and chopped off a huge tentacle on the spot. Meiji was still a 9th true spirit layer expert no matter what. Even if the succubus excelled in spiritual domain battles, with this high cultivation base, even if it was a real battle, Meiji would not be weak. The succubus cultivation technique was very fast, and her attacks were very sharp. She was only second to the shadow demon's peak assassin. Unexpectedly, the thick tentacle did not seem to cause any substantial damage to the monster. Half of the tentacle that fell to the ground was like a fish out of water, constantly jumping and rolling, shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. The smoke emitted from inside was absorbed by the broken tentacle, which allowed the tentacle to regenerate in a very short period of time. This won't do. The monster couldn't be killed at all. When Meiji had thoughts of retreating, a low roar came from the temple, and over 100 tentacles shot out. This time the monster's target was not the intruders. Rather, the shockingly strong tentacles were aimed at the statue in the temple. It's over. The monster was going to attack the statue. The temple's guardian beast naturally wouldn't attack the statue to destroy it. Just like how Meiji had accidentally touched the statue and caused a strong spiritual attack, these over 100 statues in the monster's hands were simply over 100 killing machines. This monster was hitting the statue like a bell, and the spiritual energy released from the statue was strong to an unimaginable degree. This was enough to instantly kill an entire army. Not to mention these intruders, not to mention Shadow. Even Meiji had no chance of surviving. The spiritual storm produced by over 100 statues at the same time might have already surpassed the attacks of the demon ants in the Demon Ant Valley. Even if an expert above the true spirit realm met this kind of attack, they would be in danger of dying. Because the spiritual attack covered a large area, it would be too late even if they escaped the temple. Chu Tian couldn't escape with his space movement in time. "Look into my eyes," Chu Tian shouted at the critical moment. His eyes turned golden, and a divine sense secret technique was released. Eyes of eternal slumber. The moment Meiji and Shadow met Chu Tian's eyes, they immediately felt a powerful force rush into their souls. Shadow lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Meiji had enough power to resist this secret technique, but Meiji instantly understood Chu Tian's thoughts. Therefore, not only did she not resist, she completely let go of her defenses, allowing it to enter her mind. She closed her mind. The two of them closed their minds in an instant. Their minds were closed, and their thoughts were stopped. In this kind of situation, the spiritual attack would lose its effect or reduce the damage to the minimum. This was the only way Chu Tian could save the two of them. A series of bell-like sounds erupted mightily. Even if their minds were closed, the two of them were still bleeding from their 7 orifices. It was clear they had received quite a bit of an attack. Chu Tian had a kind of splitting headache, but compared to the time in the Demon Ant Valley, Chu Tian's mind, strength, and divine sense had all been increased. Because of his immunity to spiritual attacks, he didn't receive any damage. The little fox also had immunity to spiritual attacks, but it was affected to a certain extent. It was dizzy like it was drunk. The little fox was filled with rage when it woke up, taking out the soul puppet to summon the flames. The flaming demon bird was a terrifying existence in the peak 9th true spirit layer, and its moves were very powerful, possessing a terrifying destructive might. Flames spread out in the direction of the altar, instantly burning several tentacles black. It was no use. These tentacles were not the monster's true weakness. Therefore, even if they burned all the tentacles, the monster would be able to regenerate them in a short period of time. The monster's main body was definitely hiding in the altar, but the altar was protected by a power that made the monster seem like it was wearing an impenetrable armor. Or it could be said that it was hiding in a fortress that even a true spirit realm expert or someone above a true spirit realm couldn't destroy. How should they deal with it? The tentacle monster's scorched black tentacles quickly returned to normal. Dozens of tentacles knocked on the statue again. The flaming demon bird, which was preparing to attack in midair, was immediately hit by the fierce spiritual wave. In an instant, it turned into countless exploding sparks and disappeared on the spot. This kind of powerful being was actually instantly killed. "Father doesn't believe that I can't deal with you." Chu Tian shouted at the fox, "Stall it for me." The fox couldn't summon the strongest flaming demon bird for now, but it didn't matter. The fox had many good cards, so would spat out 5 green souls in the air. In the end, the 6 green souls turned into flaming meteors that slammed into the altar in 5 different directions. When the Hellfire Demon fell as a meteor, the destructive might it produced was something even a peak 9th True Spirit Layer expert couldn't compare to. Therefore, it instantly destroyed most of the tentacles. After the Hellfire Demon stood up, it surrounded the altar and temporarily attracted the tentacle monster's attention. Good chance. Chu Tian teleported in front of the altar and stepped on a thick tentacle, quickly running into the altar. The tentacle monster quickly felt Chu Tian's intentions. The giant tentacle covered in barbs began to move, just like a meat grinder. Void escaping. Chu Tian used his void escaping and teleportation abilities to avoid being turned into mincemeat several times. Finally, he passed through the long passage and arrived at the core of the altar, finally seeing the monster's main body. This was a soft octopus-like creature. This creature's head was streamlined, and it had a large green eye. Under the eye was a large mouth filled with white fangs, looking evil and terrifying. It was a typical abyss demon. "I've finally seen you." Chu Tian released the divine servants this time, but he didn't have time to attack. The tentacle monster's mouth, filled with fangs, released a low roar, and countless tentacles, as thick as an arm, quickly shot out from its mouth. Too fast. Chu Tian didn't have time to react. He and the divine servants beside him were instantly tied up, and with lightning speed, they were swallowed alive by this incomparably large monster. Chapter 549. This tentacle monster's strength was very terrifying. Even a super expert like Lancelot would find it hard to deal with. It was no wonder the ruins creator had sent it here to guard the temple. After Chu Tian was entangled by the long tentacles, he immediately felt as if the spirit energy in his body was like a flood that had broken through a dam. It was frantically draining away at an extremely fast speed, and in this process he was also dragged into a bottomless abyss. There was no air. There was no light. The abyss was filled with a strong dark death and demonic energy. This was the monster's inner world. This monster's ability was similar to the little foxes. Their bodies had their own space, so they could store a lot of energy and objects. The tentacle monster's inner world was not inferior to the entire temple. Once a living being was swallowed, they would be completely corroded by the dark energy and become the tentacle monster's snack, with no chance of escaping at all. Chu Tian's spirit energy had already been sucked dry. No matter how deep a cultivator's cultivation was, if they didn't have a trace of spirit energy, they wouldn't be any stronger than a normal living being. This monster could instantly suck away all their spirit energy, so it could restrain almost all cultivators. Therefore, once they were swallowed by this monster, they would die 10 times out of 10 times. Troublesome, truly troublesome. But daring to provoke Grandpa Chu Tian, no matter how skilled you were, you would still be finished. Chu Tian didn't have a single trace of spirit energy left, but Chu Tian's strength did not just come from his cultivation. It also came from the weapon spirit in his body and his vision domain divine sense. These powers were fundamentally different from spirit energy. A blue and white flame was released from Chu Tian's body. After the netherworld flame swallowed a large amount of the green abyss flame, it was twice as thick as before. With a large amount of dark energy in the surroundings as fuel, the netherworld flames area had increased several times in a short period of time. If it continued to expand like this monster's stomach would be filled with netherworld flame, and it wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. The tentacle monster could clearly feel that Chu Tian was resisting, so it immediately condensed a new energy in its body. It was like a black ink that filled the surroundings. It actually resisted the netherworld flame and began to corrode it to a certain degree. What a powerful beast! Chu Tian did not panic in the face of this situation. Because of Ming Yi opening the way, his spiritual sense could already cover the surroundings. The 18 divine servants returned to Chu Tian's control. It was as if 18 light bulbs had been lit up. It was like 18 suns rising in the dark night. When the netherworld flame burned off the 18 divine servants' tentacles, the divine servants released a golden light from the inside out. They were like 18 meteors flying through the endless darkness, instantly flying out in all directions, slamming into the black energy. Poochie, poochie! Light pierced through the darkness. The divine servants contained spiritual God's power, and the black energy that could stop the netherworld flame was actually the demonic energy of the tentacle monsters. The spiritual God's power was the nemesis of this demonic energy. Therefore, the 18 divine servants instantly evaporated 90% of the black energy that the netherworld flame couldn't burn. Boom, boom, boom. The netherworld flame continued to wreak havoc, and there was no obstruction this time. The tentacle monster's body was completely ignited by the netherworld flame. It was like a terrifying furnace that was releasing an unbelievable power. When Mei Ji woke up in a daze, she found that Chu Tian had already disappeared. The little fox controlled the summoned hell flame to protect them. We didn't know what had happened. Suddenly, the tentacles of the tentacle monster twitched as if it had been electrocuted. Following that, there was a loud noise and pressure coming from inside the altar. This indestructible altar started to crack from the inside out, and each crack released a blinding light. A large explosion rang out. The entire altar was shattered. The center of the explosion was like the birthplace of the sun. The bluish-white flames formed a rapidly expanding bubble that instantly pushed forward to every corner of the temple. Everything in its path was destroyed. More than 100 godly statues that were originally indestructible were all shattered into powder at this moment. Even if one was standing outside the demon burial treasury, they could still clearly see a giant ball of energy rising up. The energy storm raged for about a quarter of an hour. Finally, when the dust gradually settled, Meiji discovered that the entire temple had been turned into a ruin that couldn't be any more broken. The surrounding landscape of a dozen li had been completely destroyed and changed. What kind of terrifying energy was this? Meiji found it hard to imagine that this energy seemed to be the same as the flames on Chu Tian's body. Although the explosion was very strong, the flames still had a high degree of self-control, so it didn't cause any damage when it came over. Chu Tian and the 18 divine servants gradually appeared from the sea of flames and dust. They were unharmed from head to toe, looking like they were just taking a walk. The little fox appeared in front of Chu Tian. Its little mouth opened. With a hua-la-la, large pieces of the eye of the star were spat out. When the statue was destroyed, the little fox had already gathered the eye of the star fragments to prevent the precious eye of the star from being damaged in the energy storm. Not bad. Chu Tian rubbed the little fox's head and said in a puzzled voice, Why did you turn over a new leaf? It's not like you to be this obedient. The eye of the star was an extremely rare treasure. How could this fellow not be greedy? The little fox narrowed its eyes and rolled its eyes. Chu Tian immediately found something fishy in its expression and also narrowed his eyes. The master and pet looking at each other was a very strange scene. Chu Tian suddenly turned around to charge into the ruins. Who would have thought that the little fox would be a step faster and instantly entered the ruins of the altar? After a few minutes, It came out of the ruins again with an octagonal black crystal core in its mouth. It was clearly left behind by the tentacle monster. Shu Tian angrily shouted, "Fuck, don't eat it. Let me see it first." The little fox impolitely swallowed it into its stomach. What kind of powerful demon was the tentacle monster? The little fox wasn't greedy, so it didn't like the eye of the star at all. The little fox ate the tentacle monster's core and began to digest it. Its body quickly swelled up and automatically turned into a giant demon fox, with a fourth tail coming out. Although the fourth tail was a bit incomplete compared to the previous 3 tails, it was already close to perfection. The little fox could be an ancient 9-tailed demonic fox. The 9-tailed demonic fox's strength was determined by the number of tails it had. The more tails it had, the stronger it was. Now that the little fox had 4 tails, it didn't fear any true spirit cultivators. This fellow, Shu Tian, gave a helpless sigh. If he couldn't obtain it, then he couldn't obtain it. Shu Tian found that after the tentacle monster was killed, large amounts of treasures came out from within its body. Now the ruins were filled with all kinds of treasures. Looking over it, there were all kinds of ancient weapons and materials. Shu Tian found several large black eggs in a certain place. These must be the tentacle monster's eggs. This monster was this strong, so its eggs must be top-quality materials. Perhaps it could even give birth to a terrifying creature like the tentacle monster. When Shu Tian was prepared to carefully look for other treasures, the ground began to tremble again, and several large cracks appeared on the altar of the temple. The entire ground caved in to form a hole that became larger and larger, finally reaching a diameter of 500 meters. Meiji shouted, "Such a strong energy fluctuation." Shu Tian also felt a strong energy being released, like a volcano that had been suppressed for tens of millions of years was about to erupt. His expression couldn't help changing. "Let's leave first, let's go." Shu Tian brought the weak Meiji and the unconscious shadow to move over 100 miles away. When he looked back, he saw a strong energy soar into the sky, like a sharp sword stabbing into the giant barrier in the sky. The entire Devil's Gate area began to violently shake. The Devil's Gate's strong barrier was hit by this strong energy and began to tremble. The mountains began to collapse, just like a super strong earthquake. The Demon Burial Cave's temple must have been built to suppress something. Now that the temple had been destroyed by Shu Tian, this large hole must have been the thing being suppressed. Meiji's expression was a bit ugly. This must be the Demon Burial Cave. Such a strong aura can only be produced in the Demon Burial Cave. The Devil's Gate's barrier and the Demon Burial Cave's aura collided. The Devil's Gate's barrier began to distort under this strong impact. It was like a giant bubble that could burst at any moment. This kind of attack and resistance lasted for about a quarter an hour. Finally, the baleful aura in the Demon Burial Cave gradually weakened. The barrier's color was originally purplish-red, but after being attacked by the fierce killing intent, it had now turned light red. The barrier's strength had clearly been greatly weakened. After around a quarter of an hour, the energy erupting from the Demon Burial Cave finally began to spread to the entire Devil's Gate area. Shu Tian and Meiji could clearly feel that this was a very evil and cold energy. Abyss, it's the aura of the abyss. Shu Tian looked at the giant hole in the Demon Burial Cave in the distance and said, "My guess wasn't wrong. There's an abyss gate under the purgatory world." Meiji was very puzzled. "What did you say? Abyss?" The abyss world was the true origin of the demons. The various demons of the purgatory world, if one traced their origin, they all came from the abyss world. Only after entering the planar world from the abyss world, after a long period of reproduction and change, there were some differences between the planar demons and the abyss demons. The hellfire and the tentacle monsters were the abyss demons. There weren't many highly intelligent abyss demons, and the abyss demons were special, often having all kinds of inconceivable mutations and evolutions. Therefore, there were very few abyss demons. Shu Tian explained, "Actually, the purgatory world was formed because of the abyss gate under the purgatory world. The so-called abyss gate can also be called a planar gate. Simply put, It is an incomparably large and stable planar channel. As long as we can pass through this channel, we can enter the abyss world. These concepts were completely incomprehensible to the people of this era. With the same logic, once the abyss world's creatures find a planar channel, the abyss world can use this channel to invade the plane. Chu Tian said this before pausing a bit before continuing. I think the purgatory world's Devil's Gate is actually a giant array. The reason it exists is to seal the abyss channel, preventing the plane from being invaded by the abyss world. Your meaning is that the Devil's Gate is a channel that connects to another world. If you understand it like this, the Devil's Gate is actually connected to the home of your demon race. Chu Tian said this before pausing. The abyss is not another world. We are an independent plane in the abyss. There are countless planes like ours in the abyss, and most of them don't have any life. There are very few planes that have life. Chapter 550. The Abyss World was an incredible place. When Chu Tian lived in the plane era, there were many empires and large companies that had begun to colonize planes. Chu Tian had gone to the Abyss World more than once, and the Forest of Chaos was one of the most important entrances to the abyss on the continent. At that time, the Purgatory World was a special region of the continent. It did not belong to any empires or superpowers on the continent. The value of the Abyss Channel was too great. It was not something a single power or country could enjoy alone. Therefore, the Purgatory World region was very prosperous and advanced. It was completely different from the current Purgatory World. The history books recorded that there was a calamity that erupted on the continent, which was around the middle of the source energy technology era. Countless demons and unknown life forms broke through the ground, and the abyss aura polluted the land, causing the normal citizens of the continent to be demonized. This calamity was the most serious in history, and the intelligent races on the continent lost over 30% of their population in 100 years. It took an entire 1,000 to 2,000 years for them to recover. This calamity was traced back to the underground Purgatory World's seal being broken, causing the tens of thousands of years' worth of energy to explode. But it was because of this calamity that the people of the continent discovered the abyss channel buried deep underground, laying the foundation for the continent's colonization era. Chu Tian had found this place 10,000 years in advance. This underground Purgatory World in the Forest of Chaos was one of the abyss channels sealed in the ancient era. Not only could one enter the abyss from here, they could also find large amounts of giant treasures left by the ancient ancestors. This was an adventure with both risks and opportunities. Chu Tian wasn't sure if exploring the Abyss Channel too early was a blessing or a curse for the continent. After all, the continent's technology was still very low, and they didn't have the conditions to explore the abyss at all. Moreover, moving around in the abyss would attract the attention of the nomadic demons. If those damn abyss locusts invaded the continent would face a large disaster. This was not a small matter that needed to be considered. The Purgatory World had many Devil's Gate areas, and one area being damaged wouldn't cause the entire Purgatory World to collapse. Therefore, the Abyss Gate had not truly opened yet, so Chu Tian had enough time to prepare and consider it. That was because the Demon Burial Cave and the Abyssal Tunnel had been accumulating energy for tens of thousands of years. Although he knew that there were many treasures hidden underground, with Chu Tian's current abilities and strength, he did not have the ability to go down and explore. The evil aura and abyssal energy that have been accumulated in the Demon Burial Cave for tens of thousands of years has already begun to cover this area. In the next few days, this place will become a place of death. We must leave as soon as possible. Because of the energy attacks in the Demon Burial Cave, the Devil's Gate barrier was already very weak, so there was no need to leave from the entrance. Chu Tian used the Netherworld flame to burn for a long time, and with the little fox's help, he easily created another exit. The mission seemed to have ended in failure. Because the high-grade immortal herb couldn't be found, Chu Tian didn't have the mind to look for it. One was that the Devil's Gate barrier had been weakened, and there would be chances to come in the future. There was no need to wait for the periodic changes. The second was that there was no meaning in finding the high-grade immortal herb now. Chu Tian and Mei Ji met the defeated soldiers that escaped from Darkness City. There were around 4,000 or 5,000 of them. Meiji learned from these people that the city lord had been killed and the Darkness City army had suffered heavy casualties. Most of the Darkness City citizens had chosen to surrender. They couldn't return to Darkness City at all. Meiji had gathered so many defeated soldiers along the way, so she had to find a place to hide. Chu Tian suggested, "My tyrant barracks should be able to hold your people." "No, the tyrant barracks is too close to Darkness City. If we return to the tyrant barracks now, it's impossible not to attract attention. Wouldn't we be walking right into a trap?" Chu Tian felt this was reasonable. The only thing they could do now was to build the transport tower and make other plans. Chu Tian arranged for Meiji to hide near the spatial mine and had Meiji find more of Darkness City's old subordinates. Chu Tian directly passed through the dangerous spatial crack to the spatial mine and used several days to personally mine the spatial crystals, finally successfully building a transport tower. This transport tower was in the center of the spatial mine. Chu Tian was filled with excitement. He had finally finished building the transport tower. He had been gone for an entire half a month. He really didn't know what Miracle City's situation was like. Chu Tian first went out to tell Meiji that he was returning to the surface to get reinforcements to take back Darkness City. He didn't care if Meiji knew what was going on. Chu Tian directly opened the transport tower to return to Miracle City. There was a flash of light. Chu Tian appeared at Miracle City's transport point, and the fresh and natural air filled his face. This was something the sulfuric air of the underground world couldn't compare to. The city manager Zero's emotionless voice came from around him. "Hello, Sir City Lord. The Vice City Lord has ordered that as long as I see you return, immediately report the news to her." "May I ask if you need to report to the Vice City Lord?" Chu Tian looked around. Miracle City's transport tower was in the open, but now it was surrounded by a gorgeous hall. Miracle City had actually built a transport hall for the city in such a short period of time. It could be imagined how efficient they were. Meng Qingwu saw that Chu Tian hadn't returned for many days, and she was very worried about Chu Tian. Therefore, she had Zero immediately report any news of Hinata to her. Zero was the highest level smart brain in the city. Chu Tian's authority in the city was higher than Meng Qingwu's. Therefore, Zero didn't directly report the news to Meng Qingwu. He needed to ask for Chu Tian's permission first. "Tell the young miss that I'll immediately go see her." "Understood, Sir City Lord." Zero's voice disappeared. The matter that Chu Tian was worried about didn't happen. Miracle City was very peaceful for over half a month. When Chu Tian walked out of the transport hall, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. Miracle City had changed too much in less than a month. Various large buildings rose from the ground, and the population had clearly increased. What surprised Chu Tian the most was the change in transportation. Miracle Commerce's most common transportation was the airship, and there were currently countless airships floating in the sky above Miracle City. These airships were roughly the same shape as before, but the structure had been greatly improved, especially the large number of mechanical structures on the lower half of the airships. There was even a set of engine equipment installed on the left and right side of the airships, for which light blue flames shot out to produce a strong propulsion force, allowing the originally slow airships to have considerable mobility and speed. Other than the changes in the airships, there were many transportation tools that Miracle City had never seen before. "Chu Tian, Chu Tian." Chu Tian heard a familiar and clear shout from far away. Meng Yingying was riding a strange flying bike at Chu Tian. This transportation tool had two wheels that could run on the ground, and there were two metal wings on the left and right. There was a floating source energy array on it, as well as an engine that released light blue flames, giving this bike the ability to fly in the air. Meng Yingying was holding the flying bike with both hands. She was wearing a pair of cute goggles, and her ponytail danced in the air. She made a beautiful turn and stopped in front of Chu Tian. She used her hand to wipe the messy bangs on her forehead and jumped off the bike. She put her hands on her hips and shouted, "You still know to come back?" I heard my elder sister say that you ran underground. What is there to see down there? You actually didn't come back after so long. You have to give me an explanation today. Chu Tian gave a laugh and immediately changed the topic. Ying, what is this thing? It looks pretty interesting, no? Humph, of course. This flying bike is the best transportation tool, but it is still an experimental model. There are only a few and it can't be mass-produced. Meng Ying said in a very proud voice, "Don't look down on this bike. It was developed by 5 departments. From the source energy array to the blueprints, it was finally given to the Elven Silver Moon City to produce, putting quite a bit of effort into it. The most important part is the engine, which is the first-generation engine developed by Miracle Commerce. The newest airships all use this technology. The source energy engine was similar to many of Miracle Commerce's products. This was an engine powered by source energy, providing a large amount of energy for the machine. Normally, it was powered by source energy batteries, and when the source energy batteries were used up, it could be replaced with one's own source energy. Therefore, it was very convenient and stable. I'll deal with you later." Meng Ying sat on her flying bike. "Quickly get on. I'll take you to elder sister's place." Meng Ying's bike could fit 2-3 people. When Chu Tian sat on it, Meng Ying started the bike and it shot out like an arrow. This kind of speed was something normal people couldn't handle, but it wasn't anything for cultivators with high cultivation bases. According to Miracle Commerce's Yunsex test, Miracle Commerce's first-generation engine could theoretically reach supersonic speeds. This kind of engine could not only be used on airships and bicycles, it could also be used in factories to provide energy. Because of the special ability of the variable speed engine, it could even be used on weapons like missiles. Meng Ying said that there were already many companies established in the Elven race. There was a company called the Eternal Forest Elven System Company that was very famous. This company had over 300 skilled employees who were all learning the Matrix language developed by the Yun sect and were currently working on the system programming. This company had upgraded Miracle City cell phones with a new system and was currently working on a personal non-smart device operating system, even a weapon control system. The Matrix language was a very useful modern programming language that could be used to send commands to source energy matrices. Do you see the operating interface of this bike? Meng Ying pointed at the rows of buttons and displays on the flying bike. This flying bike's operating system was developed by this company and was bought by our Miracle Commerce for 5,000 source stones. This is just one of their products. Chu Tian was secretly speechless. It's this powerful. Of course, other than Miracle Commerce itself, the most professional company right now is this Elven company. We have more and more equipment, and we need to build microsystems. So Miracle Commerce is too busy at all. Now that there are Elven elites starting businesses, it saves us quite a bit of effort. Meng Ying gave a sly smile and said, "This company's largest shareholder is Vivian, and the second largest shareholder is this miss. We've taken a loan of 50,000 source stones from the Elven Bank and are one of the most important companies in the Eternal Forest." Chu Tian thought that the elves were a pedantic race. He never thought that the elves' creativity would surpass his imagination. From developing a system to making the elven cell phone, the elves seemed to treat this work as a new art. The elves pursued perfection and constantly improving characteristics, which made their products very competitive. The Elven Bank hadn't even been established for a month. The Elven Reform hadn't even been a month. The elves already had 62 companies and countless large and small factories. There were hundreds of Elven products that were already on the Miracle Shopping Center, being sold to the 3 northern countries and the surrounding countries, bringing a steady stream of wealth to the elves. Chapter 551. Miracle City and the elves had entered a honeymoon period, so their cooperation became closer and closer. With the full support of Miracle Commerce, they had completed many things that they didn't even dare think about before. The Elven Council's performance was very weak. On one hand, there was the strong will of the people that the elves couldn't ignore, but on the other hand, the elves didn't go against their ancestors' teachings. Establishing a company or factories, the elves did everything in the forest. The elves didn't need to personally walk the continent. They could directly sell their products in the Miracle Shopping Center or work with Miracle City. The elves didn't need to travel the continent. It was in line with the elves' principle of seclusion. Now, they felt the situation was very good. There were endless opportunities for every industry. The elves had large abilities and resources, but because there were too many choices, they couldn't take care of everything in a short period of time. They could only choose a few fields with large potential to work in. The elven king Lancelot was a leader with great foresight. After observing Miracle Commerce and Miracle City situation for a long time, he finally came up with a core and two important development plans. One core was the most advantageous financial industry. The Elven Bank would play an important role in the development. Not only was the Elven Bank popular among the elves, it was even developing in the forest cities and underground cities outside of the Elven territory. With the elves' strong strength and credibility, the Elven Bank would be able to develop in the Forest of Chaos without any problems. The two important areas were both hard and soft. The soft was the production of the operating system, and the hard was the production of the microprocessors. The Eternal Forest kept sending people to Miracle City to study, allowing them to grasp the Matrix programming skills. The Elven Systems Research Company was already the fastest and strongest company outside of Miracle City. The large Elven cities invested large amounts of money into the microprocessor research factory, making chips for all kinds of equipment in the future. This was also the only power other than Miracle Commerce that was researching matrices. The loans for these two areas had already surpassed 100,000 source stones. Lancelot's ambition and boldness was something Chu Tian never thought of. Other than that, the elves were very enthusiastic about entrepreneurship, but most of the private companies were in the production of films and music. The concerts they produced were recorded and sold everywhere, and the outstanding films they produced were shown in Miracle Commerce's theaters. Not only did this bring income and wealth to the elves, but it also allowed the elven culture to spread and influence more races. The foreign trade of the elves had also gradually opened up. With the current development situation, the tea and artwork produced by the elves had been greatly welcomed by the nobles of various countries. Now, it had become a symbol of status and taste of the upper class. Thus, it was greatly sought after. This time, the changes were great and the reforms were thorough. Every day there was a new atmosphere. The resurgence of the elves was in sight, and they could already see the first signs of their rise. The elves had contributed greatly to the development of Miracle Commerce. Meng Qingwu had even sold some of the company's confidential technology to the elves. However, as a condition, all of the elves' factories, including the System Research and Development and Matrix Research factories, had shares from the upper echelons of Miracle Commerce. This was to ensure the benefits of Miracle Commerce. Meng Ying rode the flying bike around Miracle City. He wanted to let Chu Tian see the changes that happened to Miracle City during this time. Miracle City already had a standard city plan. Industrial production, living, entertainment, and commercial activities were separated in an orderly manner. The citizen system that Meng Qingwu was in charge of had already been completed. Each Miracle City citizen had their own legal identity, and their information was stored in Miracle City's database, which made it hard for outsiders to infiltrate them. Miracle City's city defense system was already very complete. The outer layer of defense was the most basic defense, and Miracle City planned to build 500 missile silos in the surrounding mountains for long-range missile attacks. Other advanced weapons were also being put into practice. The ancient Tree of Life was now over 300 meters tall, standing in the garden in the center of Miracle City like a towering ancient tree. The ancient Tree of Life's energy was gradually awakening. Not only did it make Miracle City more fertile, the ancient Tree of Life's energy also gave Miracle City more protection. Cenarius was closely connected to the ancient Tree of Life, and this Trant leader's strength was increasing day by day. With the Trants under his lead and Miracle City's firm ally, the Elven King Lancelot, even a fellow like Deathwing wouldn't dare invade Miracle City. Miracle City's army continued to expand, and the second-generation equipment was very popular. The battleships and mecha suits also had initial results. The current Miracle City was a power that no one in the Forest of Chaos could ignore. After Chu Tian had a simple tour, he finally saw the young miss in the City Lord's Hall. Meng Qingwu was busy with city affairs, but her cultivation wasn't slow. Now, the Meng Qingwu sisters were both in the peak third true spirit layer. This was mainly because Miracle City had too many resources and the elves often sent gifts, which even included immortal herbs. With this kind of condition, no matter how bad one's talent was, they could still raise their cultivation. The young miss was now an important character in the Forest of Chaos. Even the powerful and proud elves admired her, and even the powerful elven king had to respect her. It could be said that the young miss was the true leader of Miracle Commerce and Miracle City. Her every word and every policy could have a deep influence on the forest. This kind of large character was still the same as when they first met, wearing a simple white robe. She was dignified and beautiful, without any arrogance at all. That mature, noble, and capable temperament made anyone's heart move. Chu Tian was afraid that the eldest miss would reprimand him again. He didn't expect that he would be gone for so long. So he immediately took the initiative and loudly said, "The true elemental Dan that eldest miss prepared for me is really too damn useful. This time, I was able to set up an extraordinary merit in the underground world, and eldest miss has at least half of the credit. I've already eaten all of these pills, so prepare several hundred more for me, just in case I need them." Use them all? Do you know how high the cost of the true spirit pill is? Miracle Commerce doesn't lack source stones at all. What is there to be afraid of? The young Miss Meng Qingwu was filled with anger as she glared at Chu Tian and asked, "Aren't you prepared to explain where you've been fooling around these past few days? We tried contacting you several hundred times, but we couldn't contact you." "That's right," Meng Yingying also fiercely asked. "When I was sent to the Elven territory to work, I couldn't get through to your cell phone. What is going on? You have to give me an explanation today." "Two young misses, please calm down. I didn't want to be like this. Who told me to enter the purgatory world several thousand miles underground? Our current communication technology can't penetrate this thick layer of rock, so naturally you can't contact me." The two sisters revealed looks of shock and confusion. Several thousand miles underground? What kind of joke was this? Don't be anxious. Don't be anxious. Listen to me slowly. Chu Tian told them everything he experienced in the purgatory world. That's the general situation. Meng Yingying never thought that Chu Tian would experience this kind of incredible adventure. Under our ground, there's actually such a large space, and there are over 10 billion underground races living. This is too incredible. Meng Qingwu knew that Chu Tian wouldn't lie to her, so she said with knit brows, "There are several underground worlds deep underground. This is a large threat to Miracle City." Why does the young miss say this? "I've already investigated the matter of you and Yingying being assassinated in Miracle City. Wasn't this matter very hard to investigate?" The young miss actually had a clue. This meant that the young miss was very concerned about the assassination of Chu Tian and Meng Yingying, which was why she took out large amounts of time to investigate this matter. "We have eliminated the Savage Highlands, the Giant's Mountain Range, and the Dragon's Ridge as the masterminds. If it wasn't them, then who could it be? I think the biggest suspect behind the scenes is the underground spirit insects, which is the people sent by the Spider Queen that our Miracle Commerce has had several conflicts with. People from the subterranean world?" Meng Qingwu continued to say, "The Spider Queen and the spirit insects have always been interested in the surface. She wants the Forest of Chaos to be more chaotic. That way the spirit insects will have a chance to fish in troubled waters. Our appearance clearly doesn't match their interests. So it was like this. They deliberately found a few dark elves and spirit beasts to make a move. Perhaps they wanted to shift the blame to the Dragon's Ridge and the Savage Highlands, or perhaps they wanted to sow discord between these large powers. In short, normal people wouldn't suspect them. It really was a good plan. Wouldn't they be wrongly accusing Deathwing and Burstclaw? Right now, most of Miracle Commerce's firearms were sold in their area, with the majority being sold to their enemies. Perhaps it would make them miserable, but Chu Tian didn't think he did anything wrong. Even if they didn't assassinate him, These fellows didn't have any good intentions towards miracle commerce. Chu Tian didn't care this much. The purgatory world is very important to us. As long as we can control the purgatory world, we can control the Abyss Gate. This will be the foundation for our future Abyss expansion. Meng Yingying was secretly speechless. Abyss expansion? This was just too exaggerated. Meng Yingying had learned quite a bit from Chu Tian in this period of time, so she had a bit of understanding of the Abyss world. Miracle commerce wasn't considered a peak power on the continent, but Chu Tian was actually planning on expanding into the Abyss world. This fellow's steps were just too big. Meng Qingwu didn't comment on this, but she was still very interested in the purgatory world. After all, it was a deep underground world, and there were many resources that couldn't be found on the surface that could be easily found in the purgatory world. Therefore, having a place in the purgatory world was of great strategic value to miracle commerce. We have enough weapons. I think it should be enough to deal with a purgatory city. No, it's not that simple. Chu Tian roughly explained Darkness City's situation. It's not enough to rely on our strength this time. I hope to ask the Elven King Lancelot to make a move. Meng Qingwu thought about it with knitted brows. Lancelot had a very good relationship with miracle commerce, so if Chu Tian asked him to make a move, Lancelot wouldn't refuse. But the Wood Elves and Dark Elves didn't have a good relationship. It could even be considered very bad. Would Lancelot making a move bring a bad influence? But she couldn't think about this right now. The Miracle Academy has been established in Miracle City and is preparing to hold the opening ceremony. Meng Qingwu gave Chu Tian an arrangement. The Elven King is very concerned about this matter, so I will send an invitation to the Elven King to participate. You can use this chance to ask the Elven King. Chapter 552. Miracle Academy. Its full name was the Miracle Technology Research Institute. This was a comprehensive institute created by Miracle Commerce in Miracle City, which contained rich resources including Hall, the Yun Sect, the Spiritual Library, and etc. The Miracle Academy opened up several professions after it was created, which could be divided into two main categories. One was the traditional fields, and the other was the new fields. The traditional fields included cultivation techniques, secret techniques, alchemy, refining, arrays, and etc. The new fields included source energy science, source energy matrices, matrix programming, source energy mechanics, energy studies, and etc. These fields were divided into large amounts of professions. For example, in the traditional cultivation techniques, there were sword cultivators, body cultivators, demonic cultivators, and etc. For example, in the source energy science, there were energy studies, spatial studies, spiritual studies, and etc. The first batch of students was only 2,000. There were over 800,000 applications from all sides. They covered the Forest of Chaos, Great Summer, Great Zhou, Northern Militant, and etc. There were even scholars from outside Miracle Commerce's sphere of influence that came to sign up. This was because the Miracle Academy had an epic-making meaning. It could train various talents for Miracle City, Miracle Commerce, and even the entire Forest Continent. 800,000 people signing up for 2,000 students. What kind of intense competition was this? Every person that was chosen was an outstanding person and a lucky person. The Miracle Academy's plan was to recruit a batch of students every half a year. Once the students entered the academy, they would study for 5 years. After studying for 5 years and obtaining at least one professional degree, they would be able to obtain a graduation certificate from Miracle City and officially join Miracle Commerce. Or they could go work elsewhere. Whether they stayed or left, as long as they graduated from the Miracle Academy, they would become a top talent in their field. Today was destined to be an extraordinary day. The Miracle Academy's opening ceremony was held today. The students that were recruited from all over were sent to Miracle City from different areas. There were over 40 students that were sent from Central State, and these 40 people were chosen from the tens of thousands of applicants in Central State City. Wow, this is Miracle City. We're finally in Miracle City. God, Miracle City is so beautiful. It's even better than I imagined. There were old and young students sent from Central State. Central State's academic level was lower than the Great Joe country, gnomes, and elves, but because Central State was Miracle Commerce's home and they were influenced by a source energy technology earlier, Miracle Commerce gave them special care. There were over 40 people accepted into the academy. Among the students of the Central Province Academy, there was a pair of ordinary-looking young men and women. At this moment, their eyes were brimming with hot tears, as though they wanted nothing more than to kiss the ground beneath their feet. They were none other than the Lin siblings from Sky South City. Their journey of growth could not be said not to be inspiring. They came from a small city in a small country and were the most ordinary children of poor families. But with their extraordinary faith and willpower, they finally came to Central State City and obtained the attention of Meng Qingwu. She gave them special privileges and allowed them to study in Qilin Hall. Later, they were accepted into the Yun sect as researchers. A month ago, when Meng Qingwu announced Miracle Academy's student recruitment plan, the Lin siblings immediately signed up. Even though their strength was average, but with their solid knowledge of source energy technology, they were able to pass through the selection of 1 in 1,000. Miracle City, Miracle Commerce's headquarters. The two siblings came to Miracle City with the mentality of pilgrims. Although they had been researchers in the Yun sect for a while, because their level was too low, they could only participate in some low-level projects, so naturally they didn't have much savings. Miracle Academy's tuition was very high. They wouldn't be able to pay for it, even if they worked for 100 years. This was understandable. Whether it was the resources or technology invested in Miracle Academy, it wasn't small. There were many technologies that were top secret to Miracle Commerce. Therefore, the tuition was very expensive. Even after entering the academy, if they wanted to learn some special knowledge, they would have to pay a large fee. If they had a large background, they might be able to pay for this. But for most students, they didn't have a background and didn't have enough savings. So what could they do? Miracle Commerce specially created student loans, so each student could apply for a loan to pay for their tuition. The students could use the various projects they participated in to pay it back, or they could slowly pay it back by joining Miracle Commerce after they finished their studies. In short, Miracle Academy was a free school, but it was also a demanding and expensive school. Every person that came here was filled with opportunities. Lin Xian found several elves beside her, and she excitedly pulled her brother to the side. Look, it's the elves. Miracle City had all kinds of races, which made the two sisters very surprised. A few elven girls in the academy's uniform smiled at the siblings. Are you two here to study as well? We are elves from the Silver Moon Forest. We mainly study mechanics. This is a sister from the Eternal Forest. She wants to study the Matrix language and specialize in programming. What about you? We come from the Great Summer Country's Central State City's Yun Sect Research Facility. Lin Fan was a bit shy facing the beautiful and noble elves. We are here to study source energy science. An elf cried out in surprise. Wah, you're from the Yun sect? The other elf's expression also changed. We've heard that the Yun sect is very strong. The supersource energy matrix computer was invented by the Yun sect. My dream is to write a system for the supercomputer using the matrix language. Lin Xian and Lin Fan were a bit embarrassed. Although they were from the Yun sect, their skill level wasn't high. We'll be friends in the future. Let's all work hard together. The elves were very friendly and sincere, making the Lin siblings feel very flattered. At this time, students from all over arrived. There were several dozen races, mainly elves, gnomes, and humans. In this batch of students, around half of them were elves from all over, and they were all elites selected from the elven race. They were the pioneers of the new era and new technology. They would definitely change the fate of the elves in the future. Therefore, the elves placed a lot of importance on this. The elven King Lancelot, a few council members, and the city lords were all present. Chairman Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu. The Lin siblings saw their idol again, and their blood began to boil. Didn't they follow Chu Tian's footsteps to where they were today? The Heavens Alliance was becoming stronger and stronger. The Lin siblings decided to develop this alliance in the academy. This was no longer a kind of worship. It was a kind of spirit, a kind of belief. The Miracle Academy students had all arrived. They were all wearing the same uniform and were standing in the academy. The opening ceremony had officially begun. Miracle Commerce's chairman, Miracle City, Lord Meng-Ching Wu personally came on stage to give a speech. Other than some pleasantries, she announced the rules of Miracle Academy, as well as the hope Miracle Commerce had for the academy. Finally, she announced the personnel appointments. Chu Tian became the principal. The druid prophet Yoda and the gnome great elder Clark. These two knowledgeable people became the vice principals. The elven king Lancelot became the honorary principal to show his support for the elves. Miracle Academy was now officially established. After the opening ceremony, Chu Tian found Lancelot. He was prepared to tell him about the matter and have Lancelot go to the purgatory world to help. Then, an unexpected situation occurred. This is bad. Nangong has been captured by the Dragon Lord Deathwing in the Dragon's Ridge. We've already lost contact with Elder Sister Nangong. Meng Ying anxiously came to find Chu Tian. After the Dragon Lord locked Nangong in Dragon City, he sent an envoy to Miracle City. He wants us to go to Dragon City and give an explanation. Otherwise, he will kill Elder Sister Nangong. What should we do? Chu Tian's expression fell. What? There was actually something like this. Nangong Yin had been active around the Savage Highlands and Dragon's Ridge, selling large amounts of weapons to the rebel forces in these two areas. Most likely the Dragon Lord and the Beast King were under pressure. This was a very dangerous job in itself. Miracle City had prepared enough scrolls for Nangong Yin, but if Deathwing personally went to capture her, she wouldn't even have a chance to use the scrolls. Our Miracle City is no longer the same as before. Nangong Yin is a high-level member and has a very high position in Miracle City. Even if the Dragon Lord captures her, he won't do anything to her. Meng-Ching Wu said to Chu Tian, "How about I go to Dragon City? You still have the Purgatory World mission." Chu Tian shook his head. Darkness City was not anxious, because compared to Darkness City, saving Nangong Yin was more important. Deathwing's influence in the Forest of Chaos was enough to compete with the Eternal Forest, so it could be imagined how strong his influence was. There was no guarantee that something would happen to Nangong Yin in Deathwing's hands. Nangong Yin isn't as irreplaceable as Vice City Lord Meng-Ching Wu. If Deathwing kills her, it won't cause any damage to Miracle City. Rather, it will make him Miracle City's enemy. This is not a good method. Lancelot walked over. Chu Tian was a bit stunned. "Your Majesty, the Elven King, this is..." With my understanding of Deathwing, he wouldn't do such a stupid thing. He just wants to capture a hostage this time and force you to go to Dragon City to negotiate. Lancelot said this. "I'll go to Dragon City with you." What? Chu Tian was a bit surprised by Lancelot's actions. The Elven King is also going to Dragon City? The Eternal Forest and Dragon's Ridge have been enemies for many years. Enemies can be resolved. The Elven King slowly said, "The elves are tired of fighting and fighting. With such a good environment, why do we need to fight to the death for the Forest of Chaos territory? I hope that we can take this opportunity to have an open and honest discussion and stop scheming against each other." Good. With the Elven King going, Chu Tian was filled with confidence. Dragon City, the richest city in the Forest of Chaos. Chu Tian wanted to see just how rich it was. Chapter 553. The Dragon's Ridge had Nangong Yun's secret transport point, and Miracle City's transport tower was connected to the Dragon's Ridge. The Dragon's Ridge was the largest mountain range in the Forest of Chaos, spanning over 100,000 miles. The entire Dragon's Ridge contained over 300 kinds of rare minerals and over 20 cities. The only master of this place was the powerful Dragon Lord. No matter how many legends there were in the forest, only by standing in front of the Dragon City would people understand just how grand the city was. The Dragon City was built in the center of the Dragon's Ridge, with golden buildings as the main color. It faced a vast bay and was backed by a majestic mountain range. The forest city was very large and lacked planning. The Dragon City in front of Chu Tian was completely different. The dragon city in front of him was not inferior to Miracle City, and the density of the buildings was very high, comparable to a human city. There were giant towers that were over 300 meters tall, and they were all made of obsidian bricks with intricate patterns carved into them. There was a dragon living in each tower, and the weakest dragon was in the peak ninth true spirit layer. The colorful clouds of energy and the dense heaven and earth spiritual energy seemed like they could soar at any moment. Dragon City was so big, and the majority of the buildings were useless decorations, or it could be said that they were pure works of art. All kinds of legendary powerful metals and gems were casually used here like cheap stones to build walls, showing off the Dragon Lord's shocking wealth. The ground was covered with gems, and the walls were made of crystal stones. It was extremely luxurious, just like a dream city. If one had to find the most expensive building in the Dragon City, it had to be the Dragon Palace in the center. The Dragon Palace was 400 to 500 meters tall. In front of it, humans were as insignificant as a speck of dust. Such a palace itself was a magnificent and majestic project that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. Not to mention that the materials used to build the Dragon Palace were not ordinary. They were sparkling and moist, like jade and crystal. They seemed to be flawless, and one could see very deep into it. However, if one looked closely, they would not be able to see anything. Only each piece had different colored lights moving around without any pattern. It was like a group of fish playing around, but it was filled with a powerful vitality. It was a whole that was filled with beauty and majesty. The Crystal Dragon Palace was the Dragon Lord's palace. Any piece of this giant palace was enough for a normal person to live a carefree life. This damn newly rich giant dragon, he really spared no effort in showing off his wealth. It made Chu Tian a bit jealous seeing this. In the hall of the Dragon Palace, every jade pillar was more than 300 meters high. On both sides of the hall were piles of rare treasures. There was no need to light up the hall at all. The light from the jewels could illuminate everything inside. A huge throne carved out of natural crystal stood at the front. It was not an ordinary throne because it was dozens of meters high. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was a skyscraper. The black dragon's body, which was dozens of meters long, was lying on the throne in a very casual and lazy posture. With a slight movement of its body, the surrounding jewels tumbled to the ground like a landslide and flooded the surrounding area like a flood. "Lancelot, I don't remember inviting you." The Dragon Lord stretched out his neck, and a pair of long and narrow eyes filled with deterrence were staring right at the Elven King Lancelot, as if he was very dissatisfied with the Elven King coming without an invitation. Lancelot gave a casual smile. "You should know that Chu Tian is the Eternal Forest's most important partner. The elves have to ensure his safety. I never thought that Thunder's Fury and Burst Claw would also be here. This is truly too coincidental." Two more figures appeared in the Crystal Dragon Palace. It wasn't anyone else. It was the famous Titan Thunder's Fury and the infamous Golden Behemoth Burst Claw. The two of them used a secret technique to shrink their bodies, but that incomparably strong aura was something that no one could ignore. "Elves, mind your own business." Burst Claw took a step forward. Although he didn't make any movements, the invisible pressure from his aura instantly pushed down several mountains of treasures in the palace. Even you shouldn't think of protecting this human bug today. The Dragon Lord's crystal throne was incredibly dazzling, and the black dragon's massive body slowly sat up as a wave of dragons might spread out in all directions. The sound of glass shattering could be heard all around them, and it was the sound of precious treasures being unable to withstand the might of so many experts. In the end, they were shattered into pieces. Chu Tian was submerged by the sea of pressure. Even if the Dragon Lord didn't say anything, this wild rage that drowned everything was enough to prove everything. Miracle City sent large amounts of large-scale weapons to the Dragon's Ridge and the Savage Highlands, deliberately provoking a war, causing us to suffer large losses. Is Miracle City's city lord not prepared to say anything about this matter? The Dragon Lord needs to pay attention to his words. Even in this situation, Chu Tian's expression didn't change at all. His hands were behind his back as he took 2 steps forward. Who doesn't know that miracle commerce does business? Wherever there is a need for weapons, we will be there. We only have supply and demand in our eyes. We only have profits in our eyes. If it really causes trouble for the Dragon Lord and Sir Golden Behemoth, I can apologize for this misunderstanding. I'll have to trouble you to release my people first, and we can discuss other matters. Deathwing gave a cold laugh that was enough to break a person's mind. You want to release them with a single sentence. You seem to be thinking of the problem too simply. This is a very simple problem. Everyone is a smart person, so they know what they should and shouldn't do. Chu Tian was not panicked at all. That's right, Nangong Yin is one of my most loyal and most talented subordinates. But if you think you can threaten me or shake Miracle City with this, you're completely wrong. If you really wanted to kill the hostage, you wouldn't have waited until now. So there's no need to beat around the bush. If you have any conditions, we can discuss it openly. Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burst Claw were all stunned. Although they knew that this human Chu Tian was very bold, they never thought he would reach this step. Even in front of the 3 giants, he was still this calm. Although the 3 giants did have this goal, Chu Tian pointing it out like this was not giving them face at all. The Elven King Lancelot gave a soft cough. The Eternal Forest and Miracle City are inseparable allies. Fighting Miracle City is fighting the Eternal Forest. This is not good for anyone. This is a situation no one wants to see, so there's no harm in giving me face. All right, I'll give the Elven King face. The Dragon Lord's body shrank back, and he lazily laid back on the crystal throne. How does Miracle City's City Lord plan on solving this? Chu Tian very straightforwardly replied, "We'll stop the supply of weapons in this area. We'll compensate and apologize." The 3 giants looked at each other. Was this fellow pretending to be a fool, or was he really a fool? You want this bit of compensation to send us away? What use is there in asking for your apology? Whether it was the rich Dragon Lord or the powerful Burst Claw, they didn't care about this bit of compensation and didn't care about an apology at all. This time they captured Nangong Yun to force Chu Tian out. The main reason was because they were jealous of the elves' recent development, and they wanted to keep up with them. Only their relationship with Miracle City wasn't good, so they couldn't directly mention this matter. For the 3 giants to become the leaders of an area, their intellect and vision definitely weren't weak. Miracle commerce was wildly developing in the forest. All kinds of inconceivable technology and products had already been exposed. How could the 3 giants not see the influence and potential of these things? They wanted to be like the elves and enjoy the benefits of the technology, allowing their influence and wealth to increase by 10 to 100 times. To them, to Chu Tian, and to the Forest of Chaos, this was a very beneficial matter. The 4 giants and Miracle City. It was enough to create endless possibilities. If it was just Chu Tian alone, they could capture Chu Tian first, but who would have thought that Chu Tian would bring Lancelot with him? Although the 3 of them weren't afraid of Lancelot working together, they knew that Miracle City had something called transport scrolls. With Lancelot's protection, Chu Tian could escape unscathed. Lancelot saw that Chu Tian was pretending to be a fool and said, "City Lord Chu Tian, we are all powers in the Forest of Chaos, so we should unite and create glory together. I think we should use this chance to have the 5 sides discuss the matter of cooperation. How about it?" Cooperation? Chu Tian revealed an awkward expression. Miracle City is developing very well right now, so we don't lack allies. If there are too many people joining and they don't follow the rules, it will make the alliance bloated. This was basically directly rejecting the 3 giants. Thunder's Fury's expression changed. "Human, do you really think you can do whatever you want in the Forest of Chaos with just you? We've only been giving you face these past few months. Otherwise, with the strength of the 3 of us, do you really think you can develop in the Forest of Chaos until now?" Thunder's Fury is right. Actually, if you were just making a small ruckus in the forest, with our status, we wouldn't bother interfering. Even the matter of selling weapons this time, although it gave us a bit of trouble, it doesn't count as anything. The Dragon Lord had a serious expression. But Miracle City's actions in the Forest of Chaos with the elves have already broken the balance of the Forest of Chaos, We can't just sit back and do nothing. Burst Claw was even more direct. Transport towers, space warehouses, communication systems, weapons, smart brains, banks, factories, and etc. What the elves have, we also need to have. Otherwise, we'll just have to wait for war. For this kind of matter? Why didn't you say so earlier? Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders and said, It's not that I don't want to cooperate with you, but with Miracle City's current resources and abilities, we can only support the elves' reformation. We might not be able to. The Dragon Lord gave a dissatisfied snort. Dragon City is the wealthiest city in the Forest of Chaos. Anything the Eternal Forest can take out, Dragon City can also take out. So what is there to be embarrassed about? Burst Claw and Thunder's Fury also expressed this. Chu Tian thought about it and said, If you want to cooperate with Miracle Commerce and obtain the technological benefits of Miracle Commerce, then help me with a small matter first. I believe with your strength, this matter is very easy to solve. Chapter 554. The transport tower in Miracle City's transport hall flashed with light, and the first one to be sent back was a tall beauty with red hair. Nangong, you're back. Meng Yingying had been waiting in the transport tower the entire time. When she saw Nangong Yin being captured in the Dragon's Ridge, the stone in her heart finally fell down. It's great that you're safe this time. Are you injured? Although Nangong Yin was captured by the Dragon Lord, Chu Tian had saved her in time, so she didn't suffer at all. She treated it as a trip to the richest city in the Forest of Chaos. I'm sorry, everyone was worried. But with Boss coming out, that dragon wouldn't dare do anything to me. Nangong gave a few loud laughs. I've been busy outside, and now that I finally have a chance to come back, I'll find Vivian and the three of us can go drink. Meng Yingying, Nangong Yin, and Vivian. They were pure sisters with different surnames. They had a very good relationship with Miracle City, but now that they had many things to do, it was hard for them to have time to eat, drink, and play like they did before. Several flashes of light appeared in the transport tower. Other than Chu Tian and Lancelot, there were actually 3 other figures. These 3 figures were covered by incomparably large cloaks, making it hard for people to recognize their faces. However, they were 3 meters tall and twice the size of a human, making them very eye-catching. The most important thing was that when Meng Yingying stood in front of them, she could feel a strong pressure coming from them. This was the natural pressure of a higher being towards a lower being. You brought guests back? These people are? Who else could it be? Of course it's the Dragon Lord, the Great Titan, and the Golden Behemoth. Chu Tian said with a faint smile. Immediately informed the young miss. We need to hold an emergency meeting. Meng Yingying almost jumped up. What? Deathwing, Burst Claw, Thunder's Fury. Weren't these 3 fellows Miracle City's greatest enemies? How could Chu Tian bring the 3 of them in? If not for Chu Tian's calm demeanor and the Elf King by his side, Meng Yingying would have thought that Chu Tian was being held hostage. Meng Qingwu obviously didn't expect this to happen. Chu Tian had clearly gone to Dragon City to fish up people, but in the end, not only did he bring back Nangong Yin, he also conveniently brought back the 3 forest giants. Now that the forest's 4 giants had gathered in Miracle City, and they were calmly sitting down for a meeting, this was a large matter that could shake the forest. Deathwing, Burst Claw, and Thunder's Fury. When they left Miracle City 2 months ago, they never would have thought that in such a short period of time, Miracle City would undergo such a large change. The current Miracle City was already an advanced automated city. Miracle City's transport network, Miracle City's communication network, Miracle City's smart brain, and all kinds of high-tech equipment all displayed a strong potential. The ancient tree of life was no longer important. The 3 giants are now fully aware that fighting to the death in the Forest of Chaos was a very stupid and meaningless matter. The continent was this big, and the world was this big. There was no better chance than now. The forest's 4 giants could each compare to a warring kingdom on the continent. If they used Miracle City as a hub and the 4 giants worked together, the entire forest would be unified in a short period of time. At that time, they would have enough confidence to expand on the continent. Meng Qingwu personally talked to Deathwing, Burst Claw, and Thunder's fury, the giant dragon bank, the Titan bank, and the behemoth bank can be established. Miracle Bank will exchange 5% of their shares for 20%. If you agree to this condition, we will support the establishment of the three banks. The Elven Bank had been open for a month and had already obtained a large success. The three giants saw the wealth of the forest wildly flowing into the elves' hands. So how could they not be anxious or not feel a sense of danger? Therefore, if they wanted to compete with the elves, they could only establish their own banks and control the wealth and resources in their area. The four giants all had their own advantages. The Dragon's Ridge was the richest in the Forest of Chaos, lacking source stones and wealth the least. The Dragon Lord was a giant dragon that had lived for tens of thousands of years. His wisdom and strength could not be doubted. The Titan giants of the Giant Mountain Range controlled the most mines and resources in the Forest of Chaos, as well as the most craftsmen and the strongest manufacturing skills. If they could establish their own bank, all kinds of industries would be formed. Adding in the Miracle Shopping Center, all kinds of weapons and equipment could be sold across the continent. They had the strongest liquidity among all the powers. The Savage Highlands did not have the wealth of the Dragon's Ridge, the resources of the Giant Mountain Range, or the order and credibility of the elves, but the Spirit Beasts had an advantage that the other three giants could not compare to. The other three giants added together couldn't compare to the Savage Highlands. The Spirit Beasts had a short lifespan, fast growth, large population, and a strong ability to expand. Even if they didn't have any other advantages, their population was enough to support a bank. Of course, compared to the elves, the three giants did not have an obvious advantage, not to mention the fact that the elves were already in the lead. The Elven Bank already had over 8 million source stones, and this number was increasing every day. The Elven Bank's development would push Miracle Bank forward, so it was hard for the three giants to squeeze in. Meng Qingwu's proposal was already giving them a lot of face. Miracle Bank and Miracle City's development was very stable now. If it wasn't for the stability of the Forest of Chaos, Meng Qingwu would not have used Miracle Bank's shares to exchange. Death Wing, Burst Claw, and Thunder's Fury haggled over the price. In the end, they had no choice but to agree. Miracle Bank approved and supported the establishment of the Giant Dragon Bank, Behemoth Bank, and Titan Bank. The three banks would each take out 20% of their shares to exchange with Miracle Bank and another 10% of their shares to exchange with the Elven Bank. This kind of cross-ownership was beneficial for future cooperation and stability. This matter had been settled for now. The hearts of the three giants instantly became a lot more relaxed. Chu Tian and Lancelot's hearts were also completely relaxed. After this cooperation was completed, the Forest of Chaos would move towards unification. Miracle Bank would become the central bank, and the four giants would control most of the capital in the area. This capital would not only become ammunition for the expansion of the Forest of Chaos, it would also play an important role in maintaining the stability of the Forest of Chaos. The most important cooperation had been completed. The other projects and reforms needed to be carried out one by one. Deathwing especially wanted to build a transport system for the Dragon's Ridge area, allowing the Dragon's Ridge merchants to make money all over the continent. Thunder's Fury wanted to connect to the Miracle Shopping Center as soon as possible, allowing the craftsman's products to be sold all over the continent. Burst Claw wanted to cooperate with Miracle Commerce's firearms department. He needed large amounts of powerful source energy weapons to expand his territory. Everyone don't be anxious. Everyone don't be anxious. Since we've already become allies, we can't lack this cooperation in the future. Chu Tian was too lazy to argue with them. Before that, you should fulfill your promise. Deathwing's long and narrow eyes flashed with a faint light. What does City Lord Chu need us to do? Then I'll be direct. I'm building a transport tower in the Purgatory World, but I've encountered a bit of trouble recently. I hope everyone can help me settle the Purgatory World situation. What? The Purgatory World. Just like how the creatures of the Purgatory World rarely understood the creatures of the surface, the creatures of the surface didn't know anything about the Purgatory World or even the existence of the Purgatory World, but there were exceptions to everything. These people were not normal people. Each one of them had extraordinary knowledge and experience. Therefore, they had more or less heard of the existence of the purgatory world. The elven king Lancelot found it hard to suppress the shock in his heart. "You actually went to the purgatory world?" This brat's hands really stretched out. He didn't even let the purgatory world go. The purgatory world is a deep underground world. Not only is it a place with rich resources and special products, it is also a place that contains shocking secrets and even the fate of the entire continent. Chu Tian had a serious expression. The purgatory world needs to be taken seriously. Now that we're allies, good things should be shared. Miracle City is willing to develop the purgatory world with everyone. The four giants were filled with joy. This was a good thing they could never have dreamed of. Although they knew about the purgatory world and even saw the creatures of the purgatory world, as well as the rare resources produced in the purgatory world, they were separated by several thousand miles of rock strata. Even with the strength of the four giants, it wasn't a small risk to go to the purgatory world. Therefore, exploring the purgatory world was just an unrealistic fantasy. Now the situation was different. Chu Tian directly connected to the purgatory world. With Miracle Commerce's technology and methods, the Forest of Chaos definitely had the ability to do something in the purgatory world. Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burst Claw couldn't help feeling lucky. Forming an alliance with Miracle City at this node was too correct. They never thought that as soon as they formed an alliance with Miracle City, they would obtain an unprecedented pleasant surprise. Burst Claw was a behemoth, so he was the most direct, the spirit beast of soldiers and armies. You can do whatever you want. The spirit beasts are known on the continent for their valiance. But the most important thing right now is to establish a stable stronghold in the purgatory world. The purgatory world's influence cannot be underestimated. As an outsider, we don't have many advantages, and if we interfere too much, the locals will resist us. The smartest method is to slowly support a local power, which is why I'm asking everyone for help. Chu Tian didn't waste words and described the purgatory world situation. After the four of them understood the situation, Chu Tian led them to the transport tower. He only wanted to invite Lancelot alone, but they never would have thought that Chu Tian would invite all four giants. Lancelot was a wood elf and couldn't come in contact with the dark elves. There was also Burst Claw, Thunder's Fury, and Deathwing. Any one of them could be recognized, and they would be first-class experts on the continent. It was just a trivial darkness city. How could it be worth mentioning? Chu Tian activated the transport ray, and the five of them disappeared in a flash of light. Chapter 555. Meiji searched everywhere, gathering an army of 40 to 50,000 people. These were the old subordinates of Darkness City, but after the defeat, not only did they lose their soldiers, their morale was also low. Not to mention taking back Darkness City. Without the tyrant barracks secretly sending food and supplies, it would be a problem for them to survive in this place. The tyrant barracks has limited supplies, and there's a large risk of being discovered if we stay here. Meiji was discussing things with Shadow in the temporary barracks. We have to leave this place and go to a safer place. Shadow was stunned. Chu Tian hasn't returned yet. He has already left for several days. We can't keep waiting like this. This place is always under threat, and the army's morale is unstable. It's easy for something to happen. Meiji seemed like he had already made a decision. Not to mention that human can bring reinforcements. Don't be stupid. No matter how strong he is on the surface, he can't do anything in the purgatory world. Of course, Shadow knew this. He was very unwilling. His father was killed, and his city was taken. Could it be that he had to run away with his tail between his legs? The human had done many unimaginable things. How is he going to deal with this? We don't have time. We have to leave now. Meiji knew that one more minute meant one more minute of danger. Rather than placing our hopes in an impractical place, it's better to leave behind a final spark for Darkness City. Shadow gave a sigh. They could only do this. Meiji immediately gave the orders. When they were prepared to leave, a sentry suddenly rushed over and said, "Vice City Lord, this is bad. Our tracks have been exposed. There's a large army coming from Darkness City. Meiji's face fell when he heard this. What army? Flame Demon City, Dark Shadow City, Dark Gold City, and Dark Beast City. The elite troops of the four cities. There are around 100,000 of them. Shadow quickly asked. Who is leading them? Yes. The four city lords. Everyone's faces turned pale. It's over, it's all over. It was already too late to run now, because when the sentry came to report, black smoke appeared in all directions. The large advanced troops had already cut off their retreat, and several thousand elite winged demon soldiers blocked the sky. At this time, the elite troops of the four major cities marched over at an extremely fast speed. The troops Meiji controlled were in chaos, not forming a formation at all. Not to mention fighting, it was even a problem sending out orders. Meiji, are you surprised? A tall and strong flame demon walked in front. He was the Flame Demon City's city lord. Kildan was just the vice city lord. This person had the strength of the peak 9th true spirit layer and could break through with just a single step. Even in the purgatory world, he was a peak expert. You can only blame yourself for being too stupid. Gathering the defeated soldiers like this, do you really think you have a chance to make a comeback? Meiji immediately understood. This fellow used the surrendered traitors of Darkness City, pretending to be defeated soldiers that Meiji gathered, so he found Meiji's hiding place. The Shadow City Lord sneered. Zoro, that trash, can't even do such a small thing. We still have to do it ourselves. Don't waste time talking nonsense. The Dark Giant City Master of Black Gold City was impatient. Go destroy them. An army of 100,000 was about to descend. Meiji and Ying's hearts were like dead ashes. The four city lords were already very strong existences, and now they were surrounding this place with an army of 100,000. They had no chance of escaping. Who would have thought that when the four city lords were prepared to attack, there would be a voice that came from the air? Sorry, I came back a bit late, but luckily I made it in time. Meiji was stunned. The humans had returned. Before Chu Tian left, he had vowed that he would bring reinforcements. Now that he had returned, did the reinforcements come back or not? Chu Tian instantly appeared in the air. There was only one small and three large figures beside him. He didn't bring anything else. Meiji's eyes were stunned. Where are your reinforcements? Chu Tian spread out his hands. Aren't they all here? Meiji instantly felt despair. For reinforcements? No matter how strong they were, just four trivial people, what kind of waves could they cause? They were facing an army of 100,000. Even if it was just the four city lords, it would be hard to deal with them. The five people that appeared out of nowhere made the four Purgatory World City lords slightly stunned. Where did these fellows come from? This was really strange. The four forest giants looked around the Purgatory World and felt it was very strange. They simply couldn't believe that they had been in the surface world a moment ago, but they had been sent to the underground world several thousand miles deep in an instant. Which little rat is seeking death? Really noisy? Deathwing didn't place them in his eyes at all, treating them like a group of flies. Now that the flies were buzzing around, he clearly felt very dissatisfied. He softly said, "Who's coming?" Thunder's fury snorted. The Titan's hand is used to create miracles. This kind of trash cleaning job is beneath his status. The Elven King gave a helpless sigh. Let's take a look first. Hey, can you all play properly? Chu Tian stared at them and said, Don't forget why you came here. Although they didn't know what he was saying, from the other side's casual tone and attitude, the Purgatory City lords felt like they had been greatly insulted. Seeking death, the four of them were very strong. They were lords of a region in the Purgatory world. When had they ever been looked down upon like this before? With a cultivation base in the peak 9th true spirit layer, there were already few opponents. Not to mention the Purgatory City lords had resources that normal people couldn't imagine. Therefore, their strength was more than double that of a normal true spirit expert. Burst Claw stood out at this time, ignoring the powerful killing intent coming from the four of them. He just coldly said, No need to trouble yourself. You can all come together. You. Burst Claw slightly released a trace of evil aura, and the four city lords instantly felt their bodies tremble. They all had a strange feeling that the one standing in front of them wasn't a 3-meter-tall unknown race, but a 100-meter-tall, peerless, vicious beast. Burst Claw suppressed his body and didn't release his full aura, but just a part of it was enough to create a strong deterrent to the four city lords. The four city lords could instantly confirm that this fellow was a peak expert that had already surpassed the true spirit realm. How could he be this strong? What made the four city lords even more shocked was that among these 5 people, other than the human looking a bit weaker, the others seemed to be on the same level. Could it be that these 4 were super experts that had already surpassed the true spirit realm? This was impossible. If these experts existed in the purgatory world, it was impossible for these well-informed city lords to not know about them. No, it couldn't be true. This was definitely a trick. They were trying to scare off the 100,000 army of the 4 cities with just 4 trivial people. This was simply wishful thinking. Perhaps as long as they made a move, they would immediately be exposed. Although they were thinking this, the 4 city lords didn't dare act alone. They looked at each other and gave the order at the same time, "Kill, kill for me." The 100,000 army instantly moved like a tide. Sita Shang gave the order to attack before flying off. Even if this person in front of them was a super expert that surpassed the true spirit realm, it was impossible for him to instantly defeat 4 peak 9th true spirit layer experts. Even if this fellow in front of them was a super expert that surpassed their imaginations, it was impossible for him to fight against an army of 100,000 elites. Even if they used numbers, they could still kill him. The 4 city lords used their strongest cultivation techniques. The flame demon released a sea of lava, and his body was covered in lava. His feet stepped on waves of flames, just like a great demon god that could destroy the heavens and earth. The shadow demon turned into several dozen clones, and each clone was filled with a strong power. They all disappeared into the void and disappeared without a trace. Burst Claw faced this aggressive attack, but he did not move at all. He just gave an angry roar into the sky. Roar! The shadow demon clones were forced out in front of Burst Claw, and they were all shattered with a roar. The shadow demon's main body was bleeding from his 7 orifices, his mind was broken, and his soul was shattered, dying on the spot. The fire demon was shaken by the golden behemoth's roar, and the entire sea of lava beneath its feet evaporated for some reason. It felt as if thousands of sharp attacks had landed on its body at the same time. The fire demon's half-elemental body instantly exploded, and its mind collapsed, causing it to lose all its combat strength. The black giant and the black spirit beast were a bit further away, so they weren't affected much, but they were still heavily injured. One roar, just one roar, of the 4 peak 9th true spirit layer experts. One was killed on the spot, one was crippled on the spot, and the other 2 were heavily injured. The dark giant and the dark spirit beast were stunned. They didn't know what secret technique this fellow used to have this kind of terrifying attack power, but no matter what secret technique he used, this person was definitely an expert that surpassed the true spirit realm. Moreover, his realm was so high that it far surpassed their imaginations. "Wanna run?" The golden behemoth gave a cold laugh and instantly caught up to the dark giant. The dark giant was close to 10 meters tall, and the behemoth casually clawed at it. For blood-red blade glows were like iron blades cutting through a watermelon. The dark giant's incomparably large body was torn apart on the spot, and a several dozen-meter-long claw mark was left on the ground. Burst Claw only attacked once, so it didn't matter if he killed him or not. His figure quickly disappeared in the air, and he caught up to the escaping dark spirit beast. His arms clawed, and the strong body of a peak 9th true spirit layer expert was torn apart like paper in Burst Claw's hands. The 4 city lords couldn't even last one round in front of Burst Claw. Even Chu Tian was very shocked this time. Although he knew that Burst Claw and the others weren't weak, he never would have thought that they would be this strong. The troops of the 4 cities were all stunned. The 4 city lords were defeated just like that. Chapter 556. The strong were respected in this world. The purgatory world was a place where large amounts of dark races and demons lived. The struggle for survival was even crueler, and they worshipped experts even more. The four city lords were not just city lords. They were also the spiritual leaders and strongest experts. Otherwise, it was impossible for them to rule the city. The four respected and revered bigwigs were easily defeated like weak chickens. A destructive blow. This was a destructive blow to their morale. Burst Claw was worthy of being the overlord of the savage highlands. Not only did he have a high cultivation, he was also a behemoth, a golden behemoth. His race was blessed by the heavens, and because of his innate talent, he could defeat cultivators several realms away. Not to mention that Burst Claw's cultivation wasn't low. Could several peak 9th True Spirit Layer experts be his opponent? Burst Claw didn't have enough fun at all. Roar! Before the armies of the four cities could recover from their shock, a roar that was 10 times louder than before erupted. It could spread over several hundred miles of wilderness, making every living being feel fear from their souls. That wild and bloodthirsty killing intent was like a volcano that had been suppressed for tens of thousands of years suddenly erupting. Burst Claw instantly released all the secret technique seals and instantly turned into a 200 to 300 meter tall colossus. This colossus looked a bit like a gorilla, but it was twice as thick and 10 times more ferocious. The fur on its body seemed to be plated with a layer of dark gold. Its claws that contained berserk power were scarlet red. The true appearance of a behemoth. A thick arm was raised, and around the 5 scarlet fingernails, a raging energy storm was set off. Finally, the storm gathered together and swept out. Blood-red, violent energy poured out in torrents, forming a giant energy tornado that was several hundred meters tall. Ah, monster! Monster! Wherever this blood-red tornado went, the entire terrain changed. As long as one was sucked in, whether it was flesh or stone, they would all be turned to dust by the high-speed energy flow. The power of a golden behemoth was not something a normal person could resist. When had these purgatory world creatures seen this kind of terrifying existence before? They were all scared out of their wits. Even if they had the advantage in numbers, they didn't have any thoughts of fighting at this moment. They could only throw away their armor and run in all directions. Burst Claw revealed a look of disappointment. The purgatory world was more boring than imagined. The 100,000 people weren't weak, and if they fought back, Burst Claw would have to spend quite a bit of energy. Who would have thought that these fellows would run without even fighting, making Burst Claw unable to enjoy the joy of fighting and killing? Sir Burst Claw, the power you've displayed is enough. Chu Tian reminded. It's best if we don't waste too much time on these shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Burst Claw said in a very disdainful voice. You can guess Darkness City's level from these trash abilities. For such a weak city, you actually asked us to work together. You're looking down on us too much. Don't say so much. Just treat it as a vacation in the purgatory world. Let's go. Chu Tian didn't forget to look at Mei Ji and the Shadow Envoy. What do you two think of the reinforcements now? Both of them seem to have lost the ability to think at the same time. This golden behemoth seemed to be the weakest among the four, but even so, it possessed shocking combat power. How powerful were the other three? A dragon's roar filled the sky. A dragon's might covered the sky, and it almost made the escaping army go crazy. Those with weak willpower couldn't resist kneeling on the ground. Deathwing released the restriction on his body and spread his wings into the air, turning into a 50-meter-long giant dragon. Each black scale seemed to be filled with a powerful energy, and his body was covered in a layer of destructive dark flames. Dragon. It's a dragon. Perhaps there were people in the purgatory world who couldn't recognize a behemoth, but there was no one who couldn't recognize a dragon. After all, whether it was on the surface or underground, the dragon race and fire dragon subspecies were widely distributed. The giant dragon was a high-level dragon race with the purest bloodline. The black dragon in front of them was clearly a mature giant dragon that had lived for countless years. The might and strength the black dragon revealed was even stronger than the behemoth's. That pair of large and narrow eyes swept over the place, directly destroying the fighting spirit of the Purgatory World soldiers. With the Dragon Lord's pride, it disdained to slaughter a group of defenseless trash. It released a dignified and loud voice. "Where is Darkness City?" Chu Tian pointed in a direction, "This place." As soon as Chu Tian's voice fell, another majestic heavenly might descended. The sky of the Purgatory World was covered in thundercloud for the first time, and countless bolts of lightning wildly intertwined. The great Titan Thunder's fury released his seal and instantly turned into a 100-meter-tall giant. Titan, this was an ancient race that was not inferior to the behemoth and giant dragons. Legends say that the Titans had the hardest metal as their skin, magma as their muscles, lightning as their blood, and crystals as their bones. This race was not just the strongest warriors on the continent. They were also the most outstanding craftsmen on the continent. Titan's fury. Thunder's fury raised his hands high up, and all the energy gathered in the thunderclouds gathered in his hands. In an instant, a lightning storm was formed. Thunder's fury's hands rubbed the lightning together like cotton, finally turning it into a 100-meter-long lightning arrow. "Go!" Thunder's fury waved his hand in the direction of Darkness City, and the lightning arrow released a terrifying whistling sound. It was like a sun as it flew across the land, instantly disappearing into the horizon. This. Meiji and the others were already stunned. This powerful giant was this far away, yet it could still attack Darkness City? This already surpassed the understanding of normal beings. Hong, hong, hong. There was a faint shaking sound coming from the distance. When everyone rushed to Darkness City without stopping, the scene in front of them filled them with shock. There was a large hole in Darkness City's protective barrier, and almost the entire city wall was destroyed. The terrifying impact clearly spread into the city, causing several buildings to collapse and over 100 buildings to be damaged. As for the number of casualties, it was impossible to calculate. The Titan had shot an arrow from several hundred miles away, completely destroying Darkness City's defenses. What kind of earth-shattering power was this? Thunder's fury's destructive might was this strong. In front of this kind of expert, normal barriers were no different than paper. If they weren't afraid of Lancelot, Cenarius, and Augusta, these peak experts of the Forest of Chaos, perhaps Miracle City would have already been turned into ruins by the Behemoth's fury, the Titan's lightning, and the Black Dragon's breath. Deathwing arrived in Darkness City first, ignoring the densely packed resistance in Darkness City. A purple-red flame came out of Deathwing's mouth, and he spat it out as he flew, circling the city in a short period of time. The purple-black flames ignited Darkness City, and countless people cried out pitifully as they struggled in the terrifying dragon flames. Deathwing was a black dragon that specialized in darkness, curses, and death energy. This was not a normal flame. Rather, it was a dark dragon flame filled with death energy. Not only could it instantly destroy any building or defense, it could also ignite living beings and turn them into undying monsters. Therefore, any target killed by Deathwing's death dragon flame would immediately become a puppet controlled by Deathwing. A single dragon flame burned tens of thousands of people. The tens of thousands of people were quickly reborn from the flames, but they had already turned into wild monsters. The low-life forms in Deathwing's eyes were no different from ants. No matter how many ants he killed, he wouldn't feel any guilt. As long as he wanted to, it wasn't hard for him to ignite the entire city. Stop. Chu Tian saw Darkness City in a mess and immediately shouted out, "I want to complete Darkness City. Do you want to create a pile of trash ruins?" Meiji's heart trembled when she saw this. Whether it was the behemoth, the titan, the black dragon, or the elf that hadn't made a move yet, they were all terrifying existences that surpassed mortals. Chu Tian dared to use this kind of tone to talk to them. This was too crazy and too risky. Enough! An angry roar came from the Darkness City that was about to turn into ruins. A figure charged out with extreme speed, without any decorations or tricks. His body was covered in spirit energy as he charged at the black dragon in the air in a wild and violent manner. Lancelot saw the figure covered in spirit energy from afar, and he revealed a slightly surprised expression, but his voice was still calm. A Heaven Domain realm cultivator? The Heaven Domain realm was the fourth large realm of cultivators. There weren't many cultivators that could reach the Heaven Domain realm on the continent. If the true spirit realm could only be considered an expert in a certain area, then once one reached the Heaven Domain realm, they could be considered an expert in most areas of the continent. Other than a few truly hidden old monsters, Heaven Domain realm experts could move unhindered on the continent. This must be the Eastern Territory King, raised by the four city lords. Meiji said in a somewhat worried voice, "His strength is unfathomable." Then that, "Can His Excellency, the Black Dragon, deal with him?" Ha ha ha. Lancelot's laugh was elegant and filled with charm. Just like a graceful, noble cultivator, there are strong and weak in the Heaven Domain realm. This demon is only in the mortal domain realm. He can't cultivate a mature source spirit domain. Deathwing Nidhogg is in existence close to the sacred domain realm, and because of the giant dragon race's innate advantage, he can even fight a true sacred domain expert. The Heaven Domain realm was divided into the early, middle, and late stages: mortal domain, spirit domain, and sacred domain. Deathwing Nidhogg was in the peak 6th Heaven Domain layer. That was a powerful existence that was half a step into the sacred domain realm. With the giant dragon race's innate strength and innate advantage, even if he fought a sacred domain cultivator, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. This demon, known as the Eastern Territory King, was not weak. At most, he was in the 1st or 2nd Heaven Domain layer. He was only in the mortal domain realm and couldn't cultivate a powerful domain. So how could he fight the strong Dragon Lord? Chapter 557. Heaven Domain experts were very rare. This was mainly because the cultivation of a Heaven Domain expert couldn't be casually achieved, and it wasn't something that could be achieved by wildly consuming pills. A large part of the Heaven Domain expert was related to their race's limit. This was the dividing line between a low and high-level race. For example, Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burstclaw all had a pure high-level bloodline. Therefore, they didn't need to cultivate and could reach the Heaven Domain realm as soon as they reached adulthood. If it was a human, then, as a low-level race, they wouldn't have any power, and all their cultivation came from hard work. When they reached the true spirit realm, they had already reached the ceiling and couldn't go any higher. No matter how good their innate talent was or how many pills they had, it was useless. Why was it like this? This was the limit of their race's growth. If they wanted to step into the Heaven Domain realm, they had to find a way to break the innate shackles. To open this bottleneck, they had to have a fortuitous encounter. A large warring kingdom only had 1 or 2 Heaven Domain experts. In empires, Heaven Domain experts were considered peak experts. Because Heaven Domain experts rarely had enemies, these people were all large characters that could shake a region. The Eastern Territory King had never fought a giant dragon before, but based on his confidence in his own strength, he actually took the initiative to attack Deathwing Nidhogg. So what if it was a giant dragon? Even if it was a dragon, he had to give it a try. Even if he couldn't win, he could at least retreat. If he didn't fight and ran, it would be too shameful. The Eastern Territory King had this thought as he was covered in a white light. This was no longer pure spirit energy. Rather, it was a domain formed by the power of a Heaven Domain expert. The space within the domain would weaken, and the increase in power was something that cultivators under the Heaven Domain realm couldn't imagine. Why could Thunder's Fury destroy Darkness City from 100 miles away? This was because Thunder's Fury was a peak 6th Heaven Domain layer expert. The thunderstorm could form a very mature and stable domain. When the Titan's thunder was thrown out, it was surrounded by Thunder's Fury's domain energy. Therefore, no matter how far it flew, its power wouldn't weaken until it hit its target. This was the power of a Heaven Domain expert. Cultivators under the Heaven Domain realm couldn't understand it at all. The Eastern Domain King was only in the first or second Heaven Domain layer. Although his domain hadn't matured yet, the power of his fist was enough to shatter a mountain. He didn't cultivate any profound cultivation technique. He only had pure wild strength, a terrifying aura that could destroy everything. Boom! The king of the Eastern region finally punched out without any unnecessary decorations. The energy condensed in this punch was beyond imagination, and the surrounding space distorted and deformed under the tremendous pressure. In the end, it turned into a layer of vibrating spatial ripples that smashed into Nidhogg's body like a rock that could crush dry weeds and rotten wood. This time, a powerful energy wave erupted, shattering a part of the black dragon's scales on the spot. However, in comparison, the Eastern Domain King's body trembled, and he was flung away like a meteor. Deathwing was covered in a layer of black light. This was clearly the power of his domain. His taunting voice echoed in the sky. So weak, it's not even enough to scratch an itch. The Eastern Domain King stumbled several dozen meters before standing up in a sorry state. It was hard to believe what was happening in front of him. There was no living being that could take this punch, but the black dragon had only lost a few scales. Although he guessed that this dragon was stronger than him, he never thought that the difference in strength would be this big. The white light appeared once again. The Eastern Domain King stepped into the air and instantly moved several hundred meters. Want to run? Can you run? Deathwing's earth-shaking dragon roar filled the sky as his 50-meter-long body turned into a black shadow. Although his body was incomparably large, his speed was even faster as he opened his large mouth at the Eastern Domain King. There was no sound. There were no fluctuations. There was no light. The Eastern Domain King fell to the ground like he had lost control. Following this, a strong and invisible energy fell down and the ground caved in. The white light covering the Eastern Domain King quickly faded, and from the sounds of bones breaking coming from his body, at least half of his bones had been broken, and there were several places that caved in. This was a Heaven Domain expert, using his domain to fight back. There was no doubt that Deathwing Nidhogg had an overwhelming strength. Although they were both Heaven Domain experts, it wasn't hard for Deathwing to kill this fellow with his strength. Deathwing was prepared to use more strength to completely crush this fellow. "Mercy, mercy, don't kill me." The fellow called the Eastern Domain King kneeled on the ground and begged for mercy. This made everyone's eyes pop out. Heaven Domain experts were rarely seen on the continent, so they should be very proud existences. This fellow didn't have the dignity of an expert at all, directly kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. Chu Tian saw this and said, "Your Excellency Deathwing, he no longer has the ability to resist, so let him live for now." Deathwing withdrew his strength, and his body shrank again, turning back into the 3-meter-tall draconian. The Purgatory World's mission was too easy. There was no challenge at all. Chu Tian made a gesture. "Meiji, I'll leave this fellow to you. I'll personally interrogate him later." Meiji quickly cupped her hands. Yes. In front of these people, Meiji couldn't explode, no matter how angry she was. She was only filled with deep shock and helplessness. Where did Chu Tian find these monsters? Any one of them had the ability to rule half the Purgatory World, but these shocking experts were willing to listen to Chu Tian's arrangements. Just how strong was this human strength? The Eastern Domain King was already half dead, completely losing his battle strength. Chu Tian looked at the messy darkness city and said with knit brows, "A good city has become like this. I'm afraid it'll take a while to repair it. It's not that troublesome. Let me do it." The Elven King Lancelot hadn't made a move yet, but he took the initiative to come out at this time. Chu Tian didn't know what medicine the Elven King was selling in his gourd. The Elven King inserted the forest scepter into the ground and slowly raised his hands. An invisible but omnipresent power flooded out in all directions, covering the entire area in Lancelot's power. Sacred Domain, Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burst Claw were stunned, because Lancelot had been the master of the Eternal Forest for less than 100 years and had never fought them before. Therefore, even Deathwing didn't know how strong Lancelot was. But now it seemed like, at least in terms of cultivation, Lancelot was ahead of the other three giants. He was at least in the 7th heaven domain layer, worthy of being one of the most outstanding kings of the elven race. Lancelot's source spirit was released. This was a very strange source spirit that was like a crystal clear hourglass. There were all kinds of exquisite and precise runes on the surface, as if it contained some kind of heaven and earth law. Large amounts of faint silver light came from all directions and gathered into the hourglass, finally forming a bottle of silver sand. The silver sand began to fall down. During this process, a strange energy covered the entire area, quickly extinguishing the dark dragon flames. The destroyed buildings and the parts that Thunder's fury had pierced through were quickly restored. Everything was quickly restored by this strange energy. Other than the people that had been killed, everything else returned to normal. After around 5 minutes, the entire Darkness City seemed to have returned to how it was 5 minutes ago. It was like time flowed in the opposite direction as it should have in the past 5 minutes. Meiji had just tied up the Eastern Domain King. When she saw the Elven King's strange energy, she revealed a look of disbelief. This is... Chu Tian rubbed his chin and revealed a very interested expression. Time source spirit. Sir Elven King really has hidden his strength well. Lancelot didn't use his true strength because with the Forest Scepter in his hand, he was already comparable to most experts. Now that they saw the Elven King's own strength, everyone revealed looks of shock, because who would have thought that the Elven King's attribute would be time that was rarer than space? Time hourglass. This was the Elven King's source spirit. Lancelot could collect the flow of time and turn it back, so all the buildings destroyed in the battle were restored. Time power. This was one of the most mysterious and complex energies in this world. Lancelot not only had an innate time energy, he could also turn back time. His innate time energy was very strong. Deathwing, Thunder's fury, and Burstclaw's expressions all changed. Lancelot really wasn't simple, although the elves didn't have an advantage in terms of race, so even if their cultivation was a bit higher, they wouldn't have the advantage. However, with the Forest Scepter and the ability to control time, the Elven King's overall strength clearly surpassed the three giants. Luckily, they didn't directly clash with this fellow. Darkness City was basically repaired after being destroyed. With the overwhelming strength of the 4 forest giants, they took back Darkness City without any suspense. Moreover, with Darkness City as the center, Flame Demon City, Dark Shadow City, Dark Old City, and Dark Beast City, now that the City Lords and Vice City Lords have been taken care of, the millions of citizens and soldiers were in chaos. The 5 cities were all controlled in their hands. Close to half of the Purgatory World's eastern territory was in their hands. Chu Tian cleaned up Darkness City before bringing the 4 giants and Meiji to the main hall. The Eastern Domain King was also brought in. The Eastern Domain King's injuries weren't light, but he wasn't a normal race. His vitality was very strong, so it wasn't fatal yet. Spare me. Spare me. I'll do anything. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. The Eastern Domain King kept kowtowing on the ground, which made Deathwing and the others very dissatisfied. A respected Heaven Domain expert didn't even have a bit of backbone. This was simply throwing away their face. Chu Tian calmly said, "That will depend on your performance." Chapter 558. The king of the eastern region was 5 meters tall, muscular, and had a humanoid figure. He had a head and 4 arms, but he didn't have a demon tail or horns. He didn't even have a mouth, nose, or ears. However, his throat had a special structure that vibrated to speak. In addition, he had no hair from head to toe, and his skin was pitch black with a metallic luster. It was like a lump of black iron in human form. This unlucky guy only had a few days of prestige, and now he had become a prisoner at the mercy of others. The Eastern Domain King didn't have any aura at all. His body was wrapped in chains, and he couldn't move as he knelt on the ground. He was being held by Maid G and Shadow on the left and right, looking around in a panic. He looked stupid and ugly. He didn't look like a peak expert that had reached the heaven domain realm. That was strange. This demon had just been seriously injured by Death Wing and had almost recovered in a short period of time. This kind of regenerative ability did not seem to be something that any corporeal demon should have. Chu Tian was too lazy to guess and asked directly, "What race are you from? What's your name?" "I'm from the Black Demon race." The Eastern Region King hurriedly said, "My full name is Atu Raymond Gedon Bigo Almond." The names of the evil demon race and the dark race were usually long and stinky. Mei Ji Ing, if the full name was said out loud, it would be a few dozen words. The evil demon race and the dark race were called by their abbreviations. Just 2 or 3 words were enough. His name was Atu. Black demon race. Mother asterisk Kerr. You think I'm uncultured? Chu Tian knew about the black demon race. The black demon race was a kind of low-grade demons. They were basically the same as the green demons. Could the black demons cultivate to the heaven domain realm? What's more, this Atu's body didn't have any dark demon characteristics. That metallic luster of his skin was as hard as steel. It was clear that this scoundrel was talking nonsense, so dishonest, and I hate dishonest people the most. I have to teach him a lesson. First, cut off his limbs. Mei Ji was about to execute him. No, stop. Atu's expression changed greatly in fright as he immediately defended himself. I really am Hey Mo. I only met with an accident and became like this. Chu Tian raised his hand to stop Mei Ji and asked, "What accident?" Atu didn't dare to hide anything. He recounted the bizarre experience that he had gone through in its entirety. 20 years ago, Atu was just a low-level demon living at the bottom. One day, as usual, he went into the mountains to look for medicinal ingredients. However, he unexpectedly fell into the ruins of an underground palace. He was trapped for more than 10 days. In his hunger and thirst, Atu discovered that there was a type of blood-red Lingji mushroom in the underground palace. He didn't know the origin of these Lingji mushrooms, but he didn't care so much at that time. He immediately ate these Lingji mushrooms as food. Chu Tian frowned and asked, "What happened next?" "There is no after," Atu said with a nervous expression. "After I ate those things, I fell asleep. When I woke up, an entire 20 years had passed. My body had undergone great changes and my strength had increased by more than 100 times. In the end, after half a year of cultivation, I grasped some of the secret techniques recorded in the underground palace and finally broke through the barrier to escape." Did he eat a strange elixir? He slept for 20 years. After waking up, his body underwent a huge change, and he gained 100-fold strength? No matter how one looked at it, it was all nonsense. I swear on my name as a demon that my soul will fall into eternal hell if I say half a lie. Adu didn't care about this much in order to protect his life. After I left the underground palace, I found that my cultivation had reached the first heaven domain layer. If I met those fellows from Flame Demon City now, if I met those Purgatory City lords 20 years ago, I would be no different from a bug on the side of the road, being trampled to death at any moment. What I never thought was that these Purgatory City lords would be very respectful to me, wanting to support me in the Eastern Territory King position. They even promised to take down Darkness City and make it my personal city. So he roughly understood. If Atu really wasn't lying, it was very likely that he had a fortuitous encounter. This was because a medicine that could change a person's physique and affect them even more deeply. Perhaps only a legendary divine-grade medicine could do this. Atu swallowed this kind of top-grade medicine, and not dying was already a great fortune. In the end, his physique was mysteriously changed, and his strength increased greatly. This fellow's luck could no longer be described as good. The motives of the Purgatory City lords could be easily explained. Even if this fellow had the strength of a heaven domain expert, his thoughts were still at the level of a dark demon. His brain wasn't good, and he was short-sighted, only having martial strength and no influence. The status of a heaven domain expert was very useful. The four city lords could use his name in the future. Wouldn't they be able to sweep the resources of the entire region? The tribes and powers that didn't submit would instantly return, paying tribute and not daring to disrespect them. This was a large advantage for the Purgatory cities. Atu had mysteriously become the Eastern Territory king. There would be risks with a Heaven Domain expert by his side. Therefore, he decided to attack Darkness City. There were many reasons for this war. First was a demonstration. Darkness City was a Purgatory city with a decent influence in the Eastern Territory. So if the Eastern Territory king destroyed Darkness City, there would be hundreds of powers that wouldn't even need to fight to pay tribute. Therefore, this battle had a very large meaning. It was mainly to shock the mountains, killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. Second was isolation. Even if Atu became a Heaven Domain expert, he didn't have a foundation. The fortuitous encounter didn't increase his strength, but it didn't increase his intelligence. As long as Atu was isolated in Darkness City, the four city lords didn't need to worry about their influence being threatened. The third was Darkness City's weakness. The Darkness City city lord was heavily injured and the city was at its weakest. Therefore, attacking Darkness City at this time could achieve the greatest result with the smallest price. Darkness City was a Purgatory city that had been in operation for many years. The resources inside were enough for the four city lords to drool over. In this situation, where everyone took what they needed, this war was launched like this. Chu Tian pondered it for a while before asking, "Where is the underground palace?" Atu's little life was in the other side's hands. How could he dare lie or hide anything? He immediately told them the exact location. "You better not be lying to me. Lock him up first." Chu Tian ordered Meiji before saying to Shadow, "Bring a few people to look around. If you find anything special, tell me as soon as possible." Chu Tian was very interested in changing Atu's location. A treasure that could make a person change like this, it could be a legendary divine item. Even Chu Tian's heart would beat faster for this kind of thing. Although Darkness City suffered a large loss this time, their harvest was also unprecedented. Flame Demon City, Dark Shadow City, Dark Gold City, and Dark Beast City, the four Purgatory World cities would become subsidiary cities of Darkness City. The influence of these 5 cities was enough to monopolize half of the Eastern region's resources, which would bring large benefits to Miracle Commerce and the Forest of Chaos. Meiji was appointed as Darkness City's City Lord. The Dark Elf Shadow became Darkness City's Vice City Lord. The 4 forest giants had worked hard this time, so Chu Tian naturally wouldn't mistreat them. The 4 subsidiary cities became the Eternal Forest, Dragon's Ridge, Giant Mountain Range, and Savage Highlands transfer points in the Purgatory world. Although the 4 giants didn't have the right to rule the Purgatory world, they could use these 4 cities as a foundation to obtain resources from the Purgatory world. "Father, Big Brother Chu Tian, I didn't come." Vivian brought several dozen people over. Vivian's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. She was already a spatial expert in the peak 6th true spirit layer. This is the Purgatory world? It really is too mysterious. Lancelot was a bit stunned. "Why did you come?" "Sir Elven King, there's no need to be surprised. I told her come." Chu Tian nodded to Vivian. These people are innate spatial energy experts that Miracle Commerce has spent a lot of money to train. Now Vivian has formed a spatial engineering team to build the spatial mines, and the most important thing is to create a spatial plank road connecting the spatial crack to the outside world. Whether it was Darkness City, the 4 major cities, or even the Tyrant Barracks, Chu Tian wouldn't personally manage them. This was because Chu Tian was an outsider, and each place had its own rules. If he interfered too much, it would disturb the order, and Chu Tian would become the target of the underground world. This was not something Chu Tian wanted to see. Miracle Commerce had to establish a headquarters in the Purgatory world, right? Chu Tian felt that the space formed by the spatial mines was the best place. Not only could this place provide Miracle Commerce with precious resources, it could also use the special spatial terrain to create a spatial fortress. The spatial engineering team, led by Vivian, had the biggest task of creating a spatial plank road in the middle of the spatial crack. This passage only allowed Miracle Commerce's people to enter, and if someone wanted to surround them, they just needed to close the spatial plank road. The natural spatial turbulence from the spatial crack could block all intruders. When the Purgatory World's spatial fortress was finished, Meiji also began to organize Darkness City and the 4 subordinate cities. The Purgatory World had already been infiltrated by Chu Tian's influence. Meiji asked, "Do we need to take care of the fellow locked in the dungeon? Why do we need to take care of him?" Chu Tian shook his head and said, "This fellow is a bit stupid, but his status as the Eastern Territory King is still useful. We need a Heaven Domain expert to support the Purgatory World, so you should push him onto the stage. I believe it will be very helpful to the small and medium powers. Not to mention that this person's body is a bit special. Perhaps he has other values." Meiji knit her brows. According to her thoughts, this fellow should be killed, but Chu Tian was thinking even further. Chu Tian wanted to rule the entire Eastern Territory and even the entire Purgatory World. Chu Tian wasn't afraid of raising a tiger because with Lancelot and the other large characters here, this fellow didn't pose a threat and didn't dare pose a threat. Shadow had already returned at this time. According to the information ATU provided, we have indeed found an underground ruin. Good, very good. We have to personally take a look. Chu Tian said to Lancelot and the others. I'm afraid we'll have to trouble everyone again. How could this be considered trouble? How could the 4 of them not be interested in ATU's fortuitous encounter? Perhaps there will be a special harvest. So they readily agreed without even thinking about it. Chu Tian led the 4 of them to the location. Chapter 559. The Purgatory World was divided into 5 regions. Because the shape of the Purgatory World wasn't regular, the 5 regions were all different in size and space. The central region was without a doubt the largest, with 50% of the intelligent races in the Purgatory World, as well as the 2 most famous great demon overlords. The other 4 regions were a bit smaller. The underground palace was near the central region, and it didn't look strange from the outside. It was covered by several mountain ranges, and there wasn't anything strange around it. The entrance to the ancient ruins looked very simple, like it was an ancient ruin that could be seen everywhere. Chu Tian led the 4 giants to begin their exploration. The few of them first used the pulse reading technique to examine the surrounding area. In the end, they discovered that the terrain of this place was also extremely mediocre. Furthermore, there was not a single earth spirit vein that passed through this place. In this kind of place, not to mention the legendary divine medicine, they reckoned that even ordinary spirit medicine would not be able to grow here. Thunder's Fury's expression was not good. It seems like we've been tricked by that fellow. It's impossible for a heaven-stealing treasure to appear in this kind of place. Burst Claw and Deathwing were filled with rage. What kind of noble status did they have? They were actually tricked by a lowly demon, running all the way to this damn place where even birds wouldn't shit. They definitely couldn't let them off. Lancelot was not in a rush to express his position. He looked at Chu Tian beside him and asked, "What do you think?" Chu Tian didn't believe that ATU would trick him. ATU, indeed, didn't seem like someone who cultivated step by step to the Heaven Domain realm, and his physique was a bit strange. So ATU's words should be believable. There's no need to rush to a conclusion. Let's take a look first. What else could they do? Since they were here, they couldn't just leave without taking a look, right? The underground palace was very simple, but the space was large enough, so it was no wonder ATU was trapped inside. But this bit of space didn't count for anything to Chu Tian because Chu Tian had the Vision Domain Divine Sense and the little fox's Divine Eye, so it didn't take much effort to figure out the surroundings. At the same time, he found a place where ATU said he found the Divine Herb. When Chu Tian walked in, his vision was filled with over 100 strange altars. These altars were around 30 meters tall, and there were all kinds of strange runes and totems on the surface. According to Chu Tian's guess, it should be the style of the ancient heaven race. This also meant that this palace had existed here for at least several tens of thousands of years. ATU said he found that strange herb of unknown origin here. Let's go up and take a look. As Chu Tian spoke, he floated up. When he stood on the ancient altar, he found that there was a groove on the surface of the altar. It was filled with a grayish-white substance. When he grabbed a handful and examined it carefully, he discovered that it was some sparse, mottled crystal sand. Lancelot knit his brows. "This is," Chu Tian replied, "this is a kind of spiritual earth." Deathwing didn't agree with Chu Tian's point of view. "This is clearly a crystallized substance. How could it be spiritual earth?" Spiritual earth, as the name implied, was a kind of top-grade soil used to cultivate heaven and earth treasures. In normal situations, spiritual earth was dug out from the depths of a spirit vein. After being nurtured by the spirit vein for thousands or even tens of thousands of years, it was a kind of super soil. But spiritual earth was still soil in the end. Once it crystallized, it meant that its energy was solidified and it was hard to absorb. So naturally, it couldn't be considered spiritual earth. Spiritual earth is divided into grades. This kind of spiritual earth is a top-grade spiritual earth with strong energy. But because it has been abandoned for too long, the energy has solidified into crystal sand. Chu Tian didn't seem like he wanted to delve deeper into this matter. He looked around at the altars. The altars in this underground palace are all filled with a layer of spiritual earth. If my guess isn't wrong, this should be a special plantation. This is a plantation? Isn't this a bit too strange? Lancelot looked around and said, "Even if the crystal sand on the altars is made of spiritual earth, each altar can only grow one herb. One is enough." Chu Tian bent down and continued to dig the crystal sand. This crystal sand seemed to be layered. The top layer was dry and rough, while the middle layer was smooth and warm. When Chu Tian dug out the bottom layer of crystal sand, Chu Tian was surprised to find that the bottom layer of crystal sand was dark red in color. Really strange. What was this thing? Chu Tian picked up a handful of dark red crystal sand and placed it in front of the little fox. "Help me see what this is made of." The little fox licked it and carefully tasted it before swallowing it into its stomach. It revealed a doubtful expression and then smacked its lips a few times, carefully tasting it for a few seconds. Something that Chu Tian didn't expect happened. The little fox suddenly gave a loud cry and jumped up from Chu Tian's body. It was like an unlucky child that had accidentally eaten 10 chili peppers, jumping up and down from the spiciness as it rolled around on the ground. The Elven King asked in a surprised voice, "Is it poisoned?" "Impossible." Chu Tian was also very shocked by the little fox's performance. The little fox had never acted this strangely before. "I've never seen a poison that could poison it before." The little fox danced around for a full 5 minutes before slowly recovering. It spat out its tongue while excitedly gesturing at Chu Tian a few times. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. "You're sure it's correct?" The little fox nodded to express that it was correct. Burst Claw could not understand the communication method between Chu Tian and the little fox, so he couldn't help asking, "What did you guys find?" "Everyone, don't be anxious. We can't confirm it for now, so we still need to verify it. But once it's confirmed, we'll have made a large profit this time." Chu Tian suddenly saying this made the 4 giants confused. Chu Tian pointed at the ground and added, "I think there's a space under the palace, and our answer should be inside. Everyone follow me." Chu Tian released his divine sense in all directions and finally found a secret passage in the middle of the altar. Without saying anything else, he immediately led the 4 giants down the passage. Such strong energy fluctuations. Before the 5 of them even reached the end, they felt something strange. There seemed to be a very strong energy fluctuation here, and this energy fluctuation was something that even Deathwing had never seen in his 10,000 years of life. The aura it was filled with made even Titan, Behemoth, and Giant Dragon feel a strong pressure. What was going on? The 4 giants finally realized that this underground palace was not as simple as they imagined. When Chu Tian brought the 4 of them out of the exit, a naturally formed underground cave appeared in front of them. This cave looked very spacious, and the most eye-catching thing was that there were more than 100 blood-red crystal thorns that pierced directly into the scarlet sea that filled the lava cave from the upper level. These over 100 giant blood-red crystal spikes should be the over 100 altars in the underground palace. The altars use these crystal spikes to form a scarlet sea and then absorb some kind of energy from the sea, using it to cultivate the elixirs on the altars. This was a cultivation method he had never seen before. At least Chu Tian had never heard of such a strange method before. What is this? Deathwing stood on the platform, and his long and narrow dragon eyes stared at the scarlet sea under the cave. It seemed to be a kind of viscous and flowing energy. Why do I feel a strong aura? This aura is actually above a giant dragon's. When Chu Tian faced the Scarlet Ocean, he was finally able to confirm his guess. I understand. I finally understand. Thunder's Fury quickly asked, "What do you understand?" Atu didn't lie. Everything that happened to his body did happen in the underground palace. When Chu Tian said this, his eyes suddenly flashed with a fanatical light. This is a farm that uses demons and gods as food. With this, the four giants were shocked. What did Chu Tian say? A farm that used demons and gods as food? How could this be possible? This was pure whimsical nonsense. You might not believe it, but this is the truth. Do you see the sea under your feet? Chu Tian stared at the red, sticky substance under the cave. If my guess isn't wrong, a great desolate aerodemon god must have fallen here. After the ancient heaven race found this demon god's corpse, they thought of a method to insert over 100 energy-absorbing crystal needles into the demon god's body. Then they used these energy-absorbing devices to build an altar and place top-quality spiritual soil on top of the altar to cultivate herbs. Lancelot seemed to understand a bit. You're saying that the ancient heaven race used the demon god's energy to nourish the herbs, so the herbs they cultivated were filled with demon god's energy. That's right. Chu Tian nodded and continued to explain. The heaven race left for an unknown reason. They took away all the herbs they cultivated, but they left behind a seedling that hadn't grown yet. Tens of thousands of years later, Atu accidentally fell into this underground palace, and this seedling had matured after tens of thousands of years, so it was filled with the essence of the demon god's energy. Therefore, after Atu ate this herb, his body immediately changed, becoming completely different, and his strength greatly increased. This sounded very strange, but it was the only reasonable explanation. In fact, the first time Chu Tian discovered Atu's powerful recovery ability, he had already connected Atu to the divine servant. But this was still unimaginable, so he didn't dare make a judgment. Now there was no doubt. It was no longer important how the heaven race did it. Now Chu Tian knew that in the Scarlet Sea, there was a high chance that the demon god's corpse was hidden there. How precious was the demon god's body? When Chu Tian was in the Central State Trial Tower, he only had a bit of God's blood and a few bones, but it was enough for him to create a powerful monster like the Divine Servant. If he could obtain a complete one, how much help would it be to Chu Tian's research? Chapter 560. The Scarlet Sea was formed from the blood essence and flesh of an ancient demon god. The heaven race's altar absorbed the energy from within, allowing the herbs it cultivated to have the characteristics of a demon god. Atu had coincidentally taken this herb. Therefore, his body had undergone a large change, and he was now in existence similar to a divine servant. Of course, compared to a true divine servant, Atu didn't have the power of a demon god. It only increased his body's regenerative abilities. Releasing his divine sense, Chu Tian decided to explore the Scarlet Sea. But as soon as his divine sense touched the Scarlet Sea, it was sucked in like water touching a sponge, disappearing without a trace. Then, without any warning, a large number of ripples suddenly appeared in the Scarlet Sea. Lancelot's face sunk. Be careful, there's something wrong. It seems like we've touched something. A few silhouettes gradually appeared in the Scarlet Sea, like blood-red sculptures rising from the Scarlet Sea. They looked like some kind of terrifying and ugly demon with 3 faces and 6 arms. Their faces were ferocious, and each of them released a strong aura. This seemed like the remnant spirit of an ancient demon god had evolved over tens of thousands of years. Then with the ancient demon god's blood essence as the foundation, it finally formed these monsters. The little fox was simply the natural nemesis of these monsters formed from energy and blood essence. How were these monsters? In the little fox's eyes, they were no different from supplements. The little fox didn't need Chu Tian's reminder to take the initiative to make a move. It first spat out a large amount of purple energy from its mouth, instantly covering several dozen scarlet demons. Then it suddenly sucked in, and these monsters' bodies seemed like they were being pulled by a large force, immediately being pulled and twisted. Finally, a part of them turned into a blood mist that was sucked into the little fox's stomach. It seemed like it wasn't difficult at all. When Chu Tian thought that the little fox would be able to deal with it, something unexpected happened. The little fox sucked in a breath, and its body turned red. It gave a large sneeze, and specks of scarlet energy sprayed everywhere. This was just the beginning. It was like the little fox had sucked in a large mouthful of pepper powder. Tears flowed down as it wildly sneezed. This won't do. Even if it was in existence like the little fox, it still hadn't matured, so it couldn't directly absorb the demon god's blood essence. At this time, the demons in the Scarlet Sea began to move. Javelins or bows appeared in their hands, and a wave of fierce attacks quickly attacked Chu Tian's group. Deathwing's left wing suddenly swung forward, and the left wing quickly grew larger. It was like a giant barrier that blocked everyone behind it. Pucci! Pucci! When the blood arrows and blood spears hit Deathwing, there was no explosion or explosion. There was only the sound of corrosive acid hitting the ground. Deathwing felt a powerful and strange power enter his body. The place where the left wing was hit began to have a scarlet color spreading, and wherever this power spread, all senses would disappear. Deathwing's expression changed. He tried to resist it, but he found that the more he resisted, the faster it spread. This energy was like a flame that could ignite any substance or energy it touched. When he tried to resist it, it actually sped up its spread. How could this be? Deathwing felt like he had completely lost control of his body. After this terrifying corrosive power invaded his body, it even began to spread to his mind and soul. A powerful will seem to be reverberating in his mind, trying to enslave Deathwing's thoughts and will. Chu Tian found Deathwing's situation. It seemed like the Scarlet Sea was sealing a demon. Chu Tian had obtained a fragment of the ancient demon god's memory in Central State, so he had a bit of understanding of the ancient demon gods. Although the gods and demons were similar, there was still a difference in their essence. Chu Tian's divine blood could purify everything and break any curse, but the demon blood had a terrifying curse power. Just a single drop could kill countless beings. Nidhogg's current state was the result of being contaminated by the demon blood. The demon blood contained a powerful curse energy that could corrode one's body, spirit energy, and even one's soul. If one was completely controlled by the demon blood, although they would obtain stronger strength, it was very likely they would lose their consciousness and become a puppet under the demon's consciousness. Lancelot released his hourglass source spirit when he saw this. Time energy was poured into Deathwing's body, and the spreading demon blood energy was instantly pushed back, finally leaving Deathwing's body. Such a sinister power. Deathwing was careless, and he became vigilant. We can't touch these attacks, otherwise the consequences will be unimaginable. The demons continued to attack. The demons weren't considered strong, being in the 8-9th true spirit layer, but there were too many of them. Adding in their special nature, as long as one touched them, they would be corroded by the demon blood, so it was very troublesome to deal with them. Thunder's fury released several hundred bolts of lightning that were as thick as his arms, instantly forming a net of lightning on the surface of the Scarlet Sea. Countless bolts of lightning interweaved with each other and continued to split apart, making the net become denser and denser, attempting to suppress all the monsters underneath it. The Titan's divine thunder was not something normal lightning could compare to. This kind of lightning was an innate ability of the Titan clan, and the Titan's divine thunder was a kind of innate lightning. Thunder's fury had been nurtured for thousands of years, so even a giant dragon couldn't withstand his lightning. Who would have thought that at this time, the scarlet demons would charge into the lightning net like moths to a flame? Although their bodies were evaporated by the Titan's divine thunder, they could still release large amounts of blood mist on the surface of the divine thunder, making the originally blue and purple lightning gradually turn into a scarlet-red color. Thunder's fury discovered that he was gradually unable to control his own energy because the entire lightning net had turned into a strange scarlet lightning flashing. A completely new what was controlling the lightning, causing the countless lightning bolts to weave together, gradually forming a blood-red lightning giant. The demons were still charging into it like moths to a flame. Each time they collided, each time the demons shattered, it would give this new monster even more strength. Deathwing condensed 2 thick death dragon flames in his hands and shot them at the monster's chest. The dragon flames instantly evaporated a third of the monster's body, and Burst Claw tore the remaining parts of the monster to pieces. There was no effect. After this monster was defeated, it reformed in a short period of time. It should be because it had absorbed Deathwing and Burst Claw's power, but its aura had become even stronger. Lancelot immediately shouted when he saw this, "Stop! Our attacks have no effect at all. It will only make them stronger." Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burst Claw knit their brows. They had never met this kind of troublesome matter before. These creatures were far more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. These were several top Heaven Domain experts, but they actually had a feeling of helplessness. The countless scarlet demons continued to fuse with each other, absorbing Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burst Claw's power. Now their strength was increasing by leaps and bounds. Did they have to retreat? I have a method that we can try. When the others felt helpless, Chu Tian took out a scroll and released the 18 divine servants. With a thought, he controlled the 18 divine servants to fly out at the same time, and each divine servant released a golden light. The golden light on the 18 divine servants connected together, forming a giant seal in the air. Demon-breaking seal. The giant seal formed by the 18 divine servants slammed into the giant, and an incredible thing happened. The giant's body was like an iceberg that had been hit as it suddenly shattered to pieces. Large amounts of fragments fell down, turning into nothingness when they fell into the Scarlet Sea. What was going on? Deathwing and the others couldn't understand no matter how hard they tried. How could Chu Tian easily defeat a monster that they couldn't deal with just a few weak puppet soldiers? The divine servants were refined by Chu Tian using a large amount of ancient gods' essence blood. Although they weren't considered strong at this stage, there was an ancient god's power sealed within each body, so the demon blood couldn't corrode them. When they attacked, they released the power of the ancient god's blood, destroying the structure of the scarlet demons, allowing them to be easily destroyed. The divine servants returned to Chu Tian's side. The dangerous scarlet demons had been eliminated for now, but these creatures couldn't be killed. They wouldn't take long to revive, and they basically wouldn't die in this territory. Chu Tian said, "The divine servants aren't afraid of the demon blood's invasion, but they are still too weak. We can't deal with them again. Time is limited. Open a path, and I'll see if I can fish something out." Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, Burst Claw, and the Elven King released their domains together, instantly opening a path in the middle of the Scarlet Sea. Chu Tian controlled the divine servants to enter. The ancient demon's corpse was sealed under the Scarlet Sea, but its flesh had already melted into the Scarlet Sea. When Chu Tian was feeling disappointed that he couldn't find anything, he suddenly found large amounts of dark green crystals at the bottom of the Scarlet Sea. The ancient demon's bones. It had already been crystallized. Chu Tian used a tremendous amount of effort to control the divine servants to fish out several pieces, but this was already his limit. The 4 giants couldn't maintain the path, and the scarlet demons were reviving. They could only do this. Now that we've obtained the items, let's leave this place. Chu Tian wrapped up the large demon god bone crystals that the divine servants had fished out and immediately used spatial energy to bring everyone out of the cave, instantly returning to the underground palace. Although they didn't get the divine medicine they wanted, with these crystal bones, this trip wasn't in vain. These things were left behind by the ancient demons and were very rare on the continent. Even Death Wing and the others didn't know how to use them, so they could only let Chu Tian study them first. Chapter 561. After a few days in Miracle City, Meng Qingwu's office had been expanded several times, and now it had become the most advanced information center on the continent. She only needed to stay in this 1,500 square meter area to control Miracle City and Miracle Commerce. She could deploy troops and give orders, and it would all be completed in a timely manner. Meng Yingying was by Meng Qingwu's side, listening to the latest production orders. Miracle City's factories had already covered the Great Zhou Country, the Great Summer Country, and parts of the Northern Militant Country. There was also a very complete industrial area in the forest, as well as several intelligent factories that were being built with the elves. Meng Yingying was Miracle City's production minister. She needed to manage the production progress and product quality of each factory, coordinating the supply of resources, technical assistance, and etc. Although there was smart brain managing it, it was still a heavy job. Our spiritual research has recently had a large breakthrough. Meng Qingwu said to her little sister, "We need to speed up the construction of the spiritual tower. The spiritual technology is a very important explosive point for our miracle commerce." Meng Yingying's eyes lit up because the spiritual technology was a good thing. The trial field and the arena were built based on this technology, and now that they had a large breakthrough, it was something worth looking forward to. She immediately patted her chest and promised, "Elder sister can be assured, I will personally supervise it. With you here, I can be assured." Meng Qingwu's position in miracle commerce was rising day by day. Whether it was Vivian, Nangong Yun, Dolores, or the others, they all respected her from the bottom of their hearts. Now there was a gap between a superior and a subordinate. Other than Chu Tian, only Yingying was her closest person. This sometimes made Meng Qingwu feel lonely, but she understood that in order to control the aircraft carrier that was Miracle Commerce, this sacrifice was necessary. "Yingying, how is your progress with Chu Tian?" Meng Yingying didn't expect her sister to mention this matter, and her little face immediately turned slightly red. He's still the same. That guy stayed in the underground world for so long, and he finally came back a few days ago. He didn't even accompany me for half a day before he ran off to do some strange things in seclusion. Meng Qingwu stroked her sister's long hair lovingly. "Silly girl. Don't you know him? He looks unrestrained, but that's just what he shows on the outside. He's actually a very focused and serious person. I don't know what he wants to do, but I'm sure he has his own ideas and ideals. You have to take the initiative and hold on to them tightly." Meng Yingying stared at Meng Qingwu and said, "I think you are the one who understands Chu Tian the most in the world." Meng Qingwu coughed. "What are you talking about?" Chu Tian said that he's prepared to hold a wedding at a good time. Meng Yingying was afraid of being heard by others. She leaned over and carefully said, "Why don't you marry him together with me? Anyway, the two of us are as close as one person. We definitely won't separate." "Marry him together? Hey, I can't bring myself to do that." Meng Qingwu spat and revealed a rare, shy expression. "He didn't do anything and wants to buy one get one free. How could there be such a cheap thing in this world?" Meng Yingying loudly shouted, "Elder sister, your face is red. You little girl, see if I don't teach you a lesson." Meng Qingwu and Meng Yingying began to play around. If the people under Miracle City saw this, they would be stunned. The cold and dignified female city lord also had a cute and lively side like a child. The two of them played around for a while. Nangongyan suddenly came in. "Elder sister Qingwu, the Elven King, and the others are here. Can we start now?" Meng Qingwu remembered that there was an important meeting to be held. She immediately fixed her clothes and hair. "Have the four lords come to the city lord's fort's conference room. I'll be there in 10 minutes. The forest of chaos was gradually becoming more orderly. The 1,000-year separation of the four great powers was gradually changing. The conflicts and excess energy of the forest races should not be used on internal strife. Rather, they should be used on development and external expansion. If it was said that it was too far before and they didn't have this kind of condition, then with the appearance of miracle commerce, it was time for the forest of chaos to undergo a large change. This four-way conference was very important. The conflict between the four giants would end. A new balance and cooperation would be established. Of course, the one holding this conference was miracle commerce. Therefore, miracle commerce had to be present. But for this important conference, the first city lord, Chu Tian's seat, was empty. Ever since he came to the purgatory world, Chu Tian had locked himself up. It was unknown what he was researching. However, although Chu Tian was absent, with Meng Qingwu as the leader, Meng Ying, Nan Gongyun, Dolores, and several other high-level members had already arrived. Many thanks to the four lords for coming to Miracle City to discuss the future development plan. Meng Qingwu had her usual capable style, not saying too many polite words and directly entering the main topic. We've collected data and found that there are over 300 cities in the Forest of Chaos. The population of the cities is around 25% of the Forest of Chaos population, with a total population of around 600 million. Meng Qingwu said this, and she used the mirror to show a table, showing the power structure of the Forest of Chaos in a fan shape. The Eternal Forest, the Savage Highlands, the Giant Mountain Range, and the Dragon's Ridge have less than 100 cities. The Dragon Lord, who has the most cities, doesn't even have 42 cities, which means that over 2/3 of the forest cities are independent cities, other large powers, or cities with disputed ownership. This data was very convincing. The reason why the Forest of Chaos was so chaotic was because of the complicated power structure of the forest. Although the four giants were the top powers of the forest, strictly speaking, the power they had was not even half of the entire forest. The other powers acted as a buffer between the four giants. It was because they were too far away and out of reach of the four giants, or it was because there was a mysterious underground city that even the four giants did not know about. Therefore, there were many changes in the forest. The various powers were divided, and the forest was filled with bandits, creating chaos. Meng Qingwu continued to explain, in terms of resources, population, strength, and other aspects, the Forest of Chaos has the conditions to become an empire-level power. Today, with Miracle City as the core and the four powers working together, I think there is a need to change something. City Lord Meng's words are the truth. When Lancelot heard this, he couldn't help speaking up. Only the chaos in the Forest of Chaos is not something that happened in a day or two. These 10,000 years is not something our alliance can easily change. That's right, there are over 100 races in the Forest of Chaos, and each race's habits and beliefs are different. Between each race, village, tribe, and city, there are conflicts and grudges that cannot be resolved in 100 years. The Dragon Lord had the most right to speak on this issue. Because the Dragon Lord's own race was very small, he ruled over the largest number of cities. Most of these cities came from different races, so rebellions would occur from time to time, giving the Dragon Lord a huge headache. Unless we start a war and cleanse the entire forest, but killing billions of people is easier said than done. The forest is this big. There will be many fish that escape the net. They won't be able to live in peace for several hundred years. Thunder's Fury and Burst Claw did not say anything, but they agreed with Deathwing's point of view. The Forest of Chaos had the potential to become an empire-level power, but could never become an empire. Not to mention the complicated relationships between the powers in the Forest of Chaos. Even the four giants had a complicated relationship. They could work together for benefits, but it was impossible for them to completely fuse together. How could the elves work together with the spirit beasts? How could the dragon's tomb lich work together with the treants who worshipped life? This was indeed a very difficult task, but for Meng Qingwu, it was a task that had to be completed. The Forest of Chaos had to be unified, otherwise it would be hard for this place to be successful. This was the most important task that Meng Qingwu had set for herself in the next few years. There was heavy resistance. She had to do it. Miracle commerce is communication, logistics, and transport technology. If we want to display the greatest value in the forest of chaos, we need to create a unified environment. Meng Qingwu continued to explain, I think everyone has misunderstood my meaning. Miracle commerce does not pursue the centralized power of an empire. Rather, we seek the benefits of the various races and find a suitable standard to reach a consensus. This will allow us to work together and reduce the number of battles and disputes. Only like this will we be able to develop the forest better. The four giants considered this for a bit. If they did not pursue domination and instead pursued consensus, perhaps it would be possible. Now that everyone's benefits were tied together, stabilizing the forest of chaos was beneficial to everyone. Therefore, no one would reject this proposal. Deathwing asked, what is the city lord prepared to do? It starts with us. Meng Qingwu opened a scroll. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. The most important task of today's conference is to discuss the bottom line of the alliance and establish several laws to unify the forest. From now on, there will be laws to restrict and follow, so we can reach a consensus and ensure the rights and positions of our five sides. Reach a consensus, using the law to restrict everyone's actions? That's right, the four giants were called here today. Meng Qingwu was here to set rules. In a place without rules, there would be no order, and it would be hard to achieve anything. Meng Qingwu was now the ruler of Miracle City. She would not allow this kind of thing to happen. Even if you are the four giants, you have to obediently follow the rules. Meng Qingwu had the confidence to do this. Miracle City had the confidence to do this. Lancelot was the first to express his opinion. I agree. The elves were famous for their democracy, and Miracle City's decision would gain the favor of the elves, so the elves would naturally support them. With the support of the Eternal Forest, could the other three powers not support them? Chapter 562. Under the leadership of Miracle City's city, Lord Meng Qingwu, the four giants of the Forest of Chaos reached an agreement. The four powers, along with Miracle City, would sign a peace treaty and form an alliance. The alliance would be called the Forest Alliance. This was a historical moment for the Forest of Chaos. It meant that the four powers of the forest had disappeared, and they were now a superpower that existed in the form of an alliance. The Forest Alliance had three basic principles. First, they were not allowed to attack or invade each other in any form. After the Forest Alliance was formed, Miracle City would create a smart brain management system for each city. From now on, each city would revolve around the smart brain as the core, and the entire Alliance City would be under the supervision of the smart brain. All resource fields would be clearly recorded, and they wouldn't be allowed to attack each other's cities or steal each other's resources. Secondly, if a member of the Alliance or a city within the Alliance was under attack, the other cities had the obligation to lend a helping hand. After the Forest Alliance was formed, although it was divided into the Elven area, Giant area, Spirit Beast area, Dragon's Ridge area, and Miracle City, they were all partners. When one member was threatened, the other members had the duty to help. If a city was attacked, the neighboring cities had the duty to help, stabilizing the alliance. Third, the Forest Alliance would establish a Forest Parliament. All the major decisions of the Forest Alliance, whether it was internal rewards or punishments, would be decided by the Parliament. The Forest Council had 6 highest seats. The 4 giants each had a seat, and the 2 Miracle City lords each had a seat. Under the Forest Parliament as the highest authority, there were 3 other authorities: the Forest Judicial Court, the Forest Legislative Court, and the Forest Arbitration Court. The Forest Judicial Court was a court that was set up in various cities. It mainly handled civil, criminal, administrative, and other matters. It was to restrict the local authorities and establish legal institutions. Of course, for different races, different cities, and different regions, the laws and regulations needed to be formulated according to the actual situation. The Judicial Court was only responsible for enforcing the law and conducting trials. The Forest Legislative Court was responsible for making laws. Every city had its own judicial court, and every city had its own legislative court. Other than the principal laws of the alliance, the rest of the laws were divided according to the region, adapting to the various environments and races of the Forest of Chaos. The Forest Arbitration Court was an authority that adjudicated conflicts between cities. If there was a conflict between cities in the alliance, it was illegal for the city lords to report it to their respective leaders. They should directly go to the Forest Parliament and apply for a third-party arbitration to ensure fairness and justice. The arbitration court itself also had a supervisory function. If it discovered that a city or forest was overstepping its bounds, it could issue a warning in advance. Meng Qingwu seemed to turn into a master of law in an instant. The alliance between the three courtyards was very clear, with each having their own duties and supervising each other. While maintaining a bottom line, it left enough space for the local regions, respecting the local customs and actual situations. If the Forest Alliance system could be successfully implemented, it would greatly improve the chaotic situation in the forest. The four giants signed the Forest Pact. This alliance was officially established. Meng Qingwu saw that the most important matter had been completed, and she let out a sigh of relief in her heart. The four giants easily agreed to the Forest Alliance mainly because they had something to ask of Miracle City. Meng Qingwu was well aware that Miracle City's strength was still too weak. A paper contract wasn't enough to bind them. Once the benefits of breaking the contract was greater than following it, they would most likely leave the alliance without any hesitation. But it did not matter. Now the four giants needed Miracle City. The Forest Alliance wouldn't break in a short period of time. Meng Qingwu firmly believed that Miracle City's weak power was only temporary. Once the Forest Alliance was established, it would have a large momentum that would shake the forest. The other powers, or independent cities, for their own safety and benefits, would definitely join the Forest Alliance. These powers or cities would become members of the Forest Alliance and wouldn't be subordinates of the four giants. This was a large difference. Just like what Meng Qingwu had said, there were over 300 cities in the Forest of Chaos, and the four giants only controlled a third of them. Miracle City had formed the Forest Alliance with the four giants. How large was their momentum? If they could take in 200 cities and become members of the Forest Alliance, the influence of the four giants would be diluted and the alliance wouldn't be as reliant on the four giants as before. Miracle City had a high status in the Forest Alliance. These cities joined the Forest Alliance and not Miracle City, but in fact they were led by Miracle City. Miracle City had real benefits, and the world didn't think it was greedy. Miracle City had real power, and the world didn't think it was overbearing. Miracle City was becoming stronger, and the world didn't think it was a threat. This was the outstanding wisdom of the young miss. If Miracle City directly subdued the small and medium powers and increased the number of cities, it would definitely arouse suspicion. But with this method and using the name of the alliance's dukes, the situation was completely different. The development style of a power or a country was closely related to the leader. The young miss was the same as Chu Tian. She didn't have a strong desire for control and possession. Therefore, even if Miracle Commerce was strong enough, they wouldn't go around attacking cities and expanding their territory, because Miracle Commerce didn't need to do this at all. Miracle Commerce was a technological power. Why did they need to occupy others? It was enough to use their products and technology. After the Forest Alliance was formed, Meng Qingwu discussed the specifics of development. Miracle City's cooperation with the four giants increased day by day. With Miracle Bank support, the Titan Bank, the Giant Dragon Bank, and the Behemoth Bank were established in their respective areas. The three large banks couldn't compare to the Elven Bank in terms of competitiveness, but in their respective forest cities, they still had a lot of room for development. The three giants were all ambitious. As long as they had Miracle City's technology, not only would they be able to manage their own territories, they would also be able to see further. They would no longer be limited to the Forest of Chaos. Rather, they would be able to jump out of the forest and head towards the boundless continent. The richest dragon lord of the Forest of Chaos had money, and this giant dragon didn't have any hobbies other than making more money. When the giant dragon bank was established, it directly took out 5 million source stones from the dragon palace. It began to plan with Miracle City to create the largest merchant and mining team in the Forest of Chaos, plundering wealth from all over the world. After the Titan Bank was established in the giant mountain range, it prepared a large amount of money and cooperated with Miracle Commerce, preparing to create the largest industrial area in the Forest of Chaos. The giant mountain range had over 100 million giants, subgiants, and dwarves, representing the highest level of manufacturing in the Forest of Chaos and even the continent. The giant mountain range was also rich in resources, but there were many resources that couldn't be mined before. Now that they cooperated with Miracle City, everything became possible. Compared to the other two, the Savage Highlands expansion was more direct and unyielding. The Behemoth Bank was established to collect large amounts of military funds for the Savage Highlands, providing loans to the spirit beasts, recruiting large amounts of soldiers, and buying all kinds of Miracle City's advanced equipment. After the spirit beasts obtained powerful equipment and supplies, they began to head into the unknown forest. They hunted down powerful, fierce beasts and swept through the savage tribes, even going out of the forest and subduing the nearby small countries. They used war to raise war and become rich from war. The spirit beasts had population and cheap battle strength. Only they had the ability to expand out of the four giants. Other than that, the Purgatory World was also an area the Forest Alliance placed a lot of importance on. Chu Tian sent Vivian to build the spatial fortress very quickly. It could be used very soon. Miracle City's transport equipment and source energy weapons had already arrived in Darkness City. At the same time, they absorbed several groups of Purgatory World's demon warriors and dark gnome engineers, allowing the Surface World and Purgatory World to exchange resources. Miracle City was just like a large spider. This large spider was weaving a complex web that connected the entire Forest of Chaos. This kind of fast development was enough to make anyone raise their eyebrows. However, the creator of all of this, Chu Tian, never showed himself. This was because during this period of time, Chu Tian had an even more important matter to do. Miracle City's underground research base. Chu Tian locked himself in the laboratory and worked hard over the past few days, mainly doing several things. The first was to extract the spinal cord from the divine spine bone. The second was to extract the essence from the demon crystal bone. And the third was to develop a source energy array that could be used to process these top-grade materials. The demon crystal bone was found in the Purgatory World's underground palace, and the divine spine was given to Chu Tian by the ancient god in Central State Tower. These two things were taken from the body of a demon god, so they were definitely top-grade materials that could only be found. Chu Tian couldn't use the divine spine or the demon bone alone. It contained too much demonic and divine energy, and a mortal body couldn't withstand it, so they would have to face the danger of exploding. This was why Chu Tian kept this precious material and didn't use it. There was a method recorded in the ancient gods' memories. The demonic and divine energy could neutralize each other. As long as there was a good method and a good control, there would be a balance between the two, allowing the body to withstand it. Chu Tian had studied it for many days, and now he was prepared to use the demonic and divine bone marrow to refine a pill. But even if the two could neutralize each other, it still contained a powerful demonic and divine energy, which was enough to cause a large impact on the body. There was a possibility that before the transformation was complete, the body wouldn't be able to withstand it and would collapse. Chu Tian considered this risk and chose the 5-colored celestial fruit as the main material because the 5-colored celestial fruit had a strong regenerative and healing ability, which was enough to minimize the risk. This pill refinement was very important, and its success would directly affect Chu Tian's future. Chapter 563. In the crystal trough in front of Chu Tian, there were 2 different colored solutions. One was white gold, and the other was black purple. They were currently releasing energy with crackling sounds, and there seemed to be lightning moving within them, containing an unimaginable amount of energy. These two solutions were the essences extracted from the bodies of gods and demons. Chu Tian was very clear on how much energy this thing contained. Even the pill furnace he was preparing was something Miracle Commerce had bought from Thunder's Fury. It was made from top-quality level 4 materials and was so tough that even the Titan's divine thunder couldn't damage it at all. There were several dozen arrays used in the alchemy this time. Other than the core refining array that Chu Tian needed to personally control, there were also many stabilizing, strengthening, and blessing arrays that were controlled by Smart Brain with source stones as the source energy. The preparations were almost complete now. They could begin now. Chu Tian threw several dozen precious materials into the pill furnace as if they didn't cost anything, and the source energy arrays in all directions activated at the same time. The runes lit up one by one, forming a source energy array. The source energy arrays lit up one by one, forming an even larger source energy array. Hum, hum, hum. Waves of strong energy fluctuations reverberated through the laboratory as countless runes crawled over the surface of the pill furnace like snakes. When the various supporting arrays were finished, Chu Tian opened the refining array. The materials in the pill furnace began to be refined, and there was the roar of a storm as the energy in the precious materials was activated by the refining array. Chu Tian's expression was very calm as he refined for several minutes. When the roar of the storm became smaller, Chu Tian threw a 5-colored immortal fruit into the pill furnace. The moment the 5-colored immortal fruit entered the pill furnace, large amounts of auspicious phenomena appeared in the pill furnace. 5-colored clouds, bells, and cranes danced, and surging immortal spiritual energy instantly filled the entire laboratory. The pill furnace shook several times more violently than before. If it wasn't for the extraordinary materials of the furnace, it would have exploded on the spot. The herbs in the furnace were all priceless top-grade herbs, especially the level 3 immortal herb 5-colored immortal fruit. If any one of them was taken out, it could be used as a precious main ingredient. But now it was being used as a supplementary ingredient. What kind of extravagant waste was this? Chu Tian gradually felt it was a bit strenuous as the pill furnace shook more and more violently. It was like a trapped ancient beast was wildly smashing its cage inside the pill furnace. This power was very strong. It was not inferior to several Berserk Peak 9th True Spirit Layer experts. It was a good thing that Chu Tian had set up enough arrays to suppress them. However, letting this power charge around was not a solution. It would greatly slow down the pill formation and affect the quality of the pill. Chu Tian released a flame from each of his hands. The blue and white flames were like 2 dragons that quickly wrapped around the shaking alchemy furnace. Then the flames seeped through the cracks of the alchemy furnace, and the strong netherworld ghost flame immediately suppressed the shaking of the alchemy furnace. It was like a giant block of ice had sealed the alchemy furnace. The netherworld ghost flame could effectively suppress the restless power of the immortal pill. Chu Tian quickly activated the refining array, refining the materials in the pill furnace. Finally, the pill furnace calmed down, and Chu Tian waved his right hand. The lid of the pill furnace was opened, and a rainbow-colored light filled the field of view. The vast and auspicious immortal spiritual energy could be felt in the entire laboratory. Several flood dragons were roaring in the air. It was enough to make anyone raise their eyebrows. Too strong. This was the scene of an immortal pill being born. This was a mid-grade level 3 immortal pill that was very close to high grade. Even if it was given to someone in the peak 9th true spirit layer, it would be enough to increase their chances of breaking through their bottleneck. Not to mention someone like Chu Tian, who hadn't even reached the spirit transformation realm. If he directly took it, it wouldn't be strange for his cultivation to increase by 2 layers. What Chu Tian wanted to refine was not an immortal pill. This immortal pill was only a half-finished product for Chu Tian. Chu Tian was not in a rush to take out the immortal pill. Rather, he used the netherworld ghost flame to wrap around the immortal pill and let it sink back into the pill furnace. Then he waved his hands to control the equipment, and 2 jars of divine and demonic essence were poured into the pill furnace. The 3 materials were instantly mixed together. The pill furnace closed once again. A new round of refinement was about to begin. If the other alchemists of the continent saw Chu Tian's method of refining pills, their eyes would pop out of the pill furnace. There had never been an alchemist who had used a large amount of resources to refine a peerless pill. This pill was not the finished product, but rather a half-finished product. To be more accurate, it was just a material. Chu Tian used the pill as the main material and the demonic god solution as the supplementary material. With the 3 combined, he began to refine again. Using a pill to refine a pill, this kind of shocking method could only be achieved by a whimsical and skilled alchemist. This was because the essence of refining a pill was a process of removing impurities, fusing the essence, causing a qualitative change, and sublimation. Extracting the essence from normal materials was a very complicated matter, not to mention the fusion, qualitative change, and sublimation process. The composition of a pill was very complex, and the various components were all stable. There had never been a case of someone breaking down a pill and using it as a material to refine another pill. Chu Tian was simply a madman. The moment the immortal pill shattered in the pill furnace, it immediately caused a rumble inside the pill furnace. The entire pill furnace rumbled violently, and a violent energy passed through the incomparably firm furnace walls, causing various instruments in the laboratory to explode one after another. Then, it crashed into the walls in all directions, causing a large number of cracks. Chu Tian used the Starlight Immortal Body's defensive power to block this attack. He did not even blink as he stared at the pill furnace and continued to control the refining array. The demonic god's essence merged with the broken pill in the pill furnace and finally underwent another incredible change. The pill fragments dissolved and the demonic god's essence solidified. Following that, it was like a balloon as it continued to expand. It was like a newborn placenta that was wildly growing at an incredible speed. The pill furnace let out a series of groans, and the furnace walls seemed to give off a cracking sound. Chu Tian's divine sense found that there were many small cracks on the pill furnace. If this continued, there would be a large explosion. Once the energy in the pill furnace went out of control, not only would it explode into the sky, half of the laboratory would be heavily damaged. He had to stabilize it. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would be wasted. Chu Tian's body exploded with an explosion. He released an even stronger flame and formed a clone that charged at the pill furnace. The clone not only gathered all the netherworld ghost flames, it also gathered all of Chu Tian's divine sense. It charged forward like this, and the entire pill furnace was filled with flames. The netherworld ghost flames seeped into the pill furnace through the cracks, forming a barrier between the pill furnace and the materials. The entire alchemy furnace now looked like a furnace made of flames. Chu Tian was multitasking. He used his divine sense to strengthen the pill furnace while using his spirit energy to control the refining array. He saw that the cracks on the surface of the furnace were still slowly increasing, and the energy inside was becoming stronger. The refining process was slowly and steadily continuing. Waves of energy were already spreading through the entire underground base. Even the slowest person would be able to sense the existence of this power. This energy was just too terrifying. Even if Deathwing and the others were here, their expressions would change. What kind of terrifying experiment was the City Lord doing? If he failed, not only would the underground base be destroyed, the City Lord's life would also be hard to keep. When everyone was feeling uneasy, Chu Tian's refining process had reached a critical point. The pill furnace was already covered in spider webs of cracks, and the netherworld ghost flames couldn't hold on for much longer. Not good. It would definitely explode like this. Chu Tian felt that the refinement in the furnace was almost complete, but the thing being refined couldn't form a pill for a long time. This was something that couldn't be helped. The pill furnace was already seriously damaged, and the thing inside was too strong. How could it easily form a pill? If the medicinal energy couldn't form a pill, then the furnace would explode, and this furnace would have no value. Now was the last step. Could it be that it would fail at the pill-forming step? How could anyone be willing? Chu Tian found that the situation was very bad because with the current situation, forming a pill was almost impossible. What to do? How to solve it? Time was of the essence. There was no time to think. Chu Tian suddenly steeled his heart and released the netherworld flame, sending it all into the pill furnace. Large amounts of netherworld flame combined with the medicinal energy in the pill furnace and burned it. He directly used all the medicinal energy and essence in the pill furnace and used the netherworld flame to combine it with the netherworld flame. Now, the entire pill furnace couldn't bear the heavy load and completely exploded. The terrifying shock wave spread in all directions and instantly crushed all the instruments in the laboratory. The walls that were reinforced with special explosion-proof runes were actually as fragile as a piece of paper. The entire laboratory was instantly shattered to pieces. Although the pill furnace had exploded, the things inside the pill furnace had been preserved by a layer of netherworld ghost flame. This was a white-gold, purple-black fusion of aura. The surroundings were filled with specks of seven-colored light. The netherworld ghost flame was like a bubble that wrapped around them. Chu Tian charged forward like an arrow, and his arms spread out as he walked into the center of the bubble. At this time, Chu Tian's source spirit was released, and his eyes turned pitch black. His body turned into a bottomless black hole, and a strong gravitational force pulled in the surrounding energy. In that instant, a wave of power as vast as the ocean surged into his body. Chu Tian hadn't finished forming the pill, but he was using this most direct method to absorb everything. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.